So what does that have to do with rights?
Rights are an extension of morality. Rights are the expression of moral freedoms.
Okay, so how do you how do you so do you think they exist, or
Yes, moral
in what
realism.
way do they exist?
They're facts of reality. That like, their moral statements are either true or false, like any statement. So they are as true as facts of gravity.
Can you observe a right?
Can you observe a right is a description of a moral truth? Can you observe a moral truth? Yes.
But a moral truth is different than a right, though. So
Well, a right is again an expression of a moral truth. So, like, can you
so
observe an expression of gravity? Like, no, because it's just a mathematical model. Can you observe gravity itself? Yes. So you can observe the thing. An expression of the thing is like a consequence or something. Uh,
so the answer is you can't observe rights.
right. You can't observe rights because rights are
Okay.
an expression.
Okay. Do you have any questions about that, Andrew? You like to pick at rights a little bit.
Well, I mean, I'm kind of confused on the objective moral realist. So you're an objective moral realist, and you believe that there are rights. What is the kind of grounding for moral realism that you would use from your worldview?
Moral naturalism.
A naturalism. Okay.
Moral naturalism. Moral naturalism is a model of morality specific in philosophy. It's a Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. You can check it out. Moral naturalism is the grounding that morality is a natural thing in reality, like physics, laws of physics, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I did read. This was a while ago. There was a debate that you had, and I read a critique, I guess, from the guy who was debating you. I can't remember his name now, but he was kind of getting into it. And of course, you can critique basically any philosophical school that you want or school of thought that you want. There's essentially, I think, pretty good valid arguments against most for, kind of different categories which are within them. When you're talking about rights, when they map onto reality, though, in this case, if you're talking about like constitutional rights, would those kind of mash pretty well with what you consider these objective moral rights to be?
No, I'd say that they were closer than most other models at the time, but like all models, they are incremental, and so with each subsequent model, you get closer and closer to the objective one. And so I think the Constitution was better than pretty much anything else prior to it, with only
Hmm.
a few exceptions, but it's still far away from the absolute objective truth. Just like in science, you make a model like Newtonian gravity. Newtonian gravity was closer and better than anything before it, but it was still far away and was replaced by a better one later.
So if you were talking about like the Second Amendment, how would that flow inside your model?
I think everyone should have rights over themselves and their property. So if they should have the right to bear arms, sure, yeah, you should be able to own guns. Yes.
And if you have the right to own guns, does the state have a right to do things like background checks?
Sure. I don't see a problem with a background check.
Well, I'm just wondering how is this an objective standard for owning a gun then if there can be an intercession to kind of take it away from you?
So I would agree with you in that one that I think it is immoral to take away people's guns of anybody, no matter how evil they are. Taking away their guns without consent is immoral because you're limiting their freedoms, but it's justified. So it's a justified immoral action. You're doing one bad thing to prevent a worse bad thing. So like putting someone in prison would be an immoral action, even if they're a murderer, because you are infringing on their rights, their consent. But if we don't put them in prison, they're going to hurt other people, which is going to be a greater infringement of consent on those other people. And so we do the lesser evil, which is put one person in prison to save five innocent people. Same thing with guns. So background checks and restricting people from getting guns is a justified immoral action done to prevent harm, greater harm to others.
It kind of almost sounds like threshold deontology in a way. Like there's a threshold where you would say that you kind of would move over towards consequences more than you would duties.
No. So
No.
deontology is about the moral nature of the statement. So if there's a threshold where an action becomes moral or when it was immoral. So like killing somebody was immoral, and then threshold deontology says once it meets this threshold, it becomes moral to kill the person. That's the opposite of what I said. I said it's immoral.
But wouldn't it become moral then to take the gun away?
No,
Isn't that
it's a
what you're saying?
justified immoral action. So still immoral. That's what the immoral word means.
So
But you
let me ask you a question.
so then from your worldview, would you do it?
Yes, so there are immoral things I would do in order to prevent greater immoral things. Yes.
It just sounds like a threshold that once it's reached, you would do the thing.
Yes, that is the threshold. The objection of what I said, of what I was objecting to when you said threshold deontology. Deontology says this model, the action becomes moral. That's what the threshold is. It goes from immoral to moral. So it's not like mine, because mine never becomes moral. It's
Well, I'm
always
trying to figure
immoral.
out what makes it immoral if it's justified for you to do it, and you would do it, and you would do the immoral thing. Wouldn't that be
Yes.
the moral thing?
No. So you can do a bad thing and have it still be bad, but it be less bad than another thing.
Yeah, but wouldn't that be the moral thing?
No.
Like inside of this prism?
No, that would be subjectively the best thing you can do. Does that make it objectively moral? The answer is no.
Now, what is the difference between this and utilitarianism? Forgive me for being dumb. It sounds very similar.
Utilitarianism would be more in line with threshold deontology, where it says the action that does the least harm is the moral action. So that would be like what Andrew's saying. So like if killing one person would save 5, it's moral to kill the person. My model says no, it's still immoral to kill the person. It's just the least bad thing you can do in the situation. So it's still bad.
So it's just not how you define it, kind of, in a way.
Sort of.
No? Yeah.
So I have a question about this. So when you observe something occurring, what about the observation tells you whether something's right or wrong? Like, what's the actual standard when you observe the thing in reality?
Well, it would be based on a law of physics. So my model is that there's actually a law of physics, a moral law out there, and you could actually measure it and determine if the action was right or wrong.
Wouldn't physics suggest that anything you're observing is just a lawful effect of some previous cause, though?
No.
Isn't that what physics is?
No, it's literally the opposite. So physics is non-deterministic, so it is not the case that all actions that happened are determined by prior actions. It's the consensus that it's indeterministic. It doesn't do that.
Wow.
So when we refer to physics, like, X causes Y, or something like this, like water boils, or like even more basic, like pressure goes from high to low. Are you saying that's not an effect that's determined?
That is an
how we
effect
observe it?
that's determined, but that wasn't what your question was. Your question was, does physics say that all things are determined by prior things? The answer is no. There's quantum effects. Things do not always determined by what prior effects. Physics is the study of the natural forces of the universe. It has nothing about determinism or indeterminism. It's independent of that question entirely. So if there was a law of physics that was moral, that would not in any way be incompatible with physics or what physics stands for.
Okay, so then if that's the case,
what makes it moral?
The law would make it moral. If there is a law.
Yeah, but this is where I'm kind of confused. I'm trying to figure this out. And just kind of bear with me here as I try to figure this out. I know that I'm just some dumb, wrencher out in the middle of nowhere, but trying to figure out what actually makes it moral or not moral. It's a subjective prep, because you said it's objective, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what actually makes this thing moral? I know that you claim it's a law, right? But I'm trying to figure out what the grounding is for the morality exactly.
All right.
Like,
so
how do we know that this is moral?
So it would be like gravity is objective, right? It exists independent of what anybody says, right?
Well, I mean, the effect for sure, yeah.
In every scenario?
Well, not the effect, literally the object. The curvature of space-time is a thing that exists. No opinions matter. It's an object. It's a thing, right?
Space-time exists?
Yes.
As an object?
Exists.
What is it composed of? What are its natural properties?
It's a field.
Space-time is a field, and what is it composed of?
Field stuff.
Field stuff. Okay, I'll take your word for that. Go on.
So there is a field called space-time. It exists. Gravity is the perturbations in this field that exists. It's subjective. There's no opinions.
The field that's made of space stuff.
You're talking about atoms and void and space stuff. Atoms and void.
Well, no, it's not atoms. Fields are more prior to atoms. I could actually give an explanation, but it's literally irrelevant to the conversation. So, are you with me? Fields are objective.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you grant fields objectively
field
exist
stuff.
independent of opinion?
Okay, fields exist and they're made of field stuff. Go on. So the
No,
there's
this is a question. Do you accept field
stuff? Yeah, we
objectively?
granted field stuff.
Well, no, I'm asking. Do you accept fields?
No, I don't accept it because it doesn't.
objectively?
It hasn't been fully explained, so I'm going to grant it because I don't know what field stuff refers to.
Do you grant that everyone in physics, the consensus in physics is that fields stars, black holes, those exist objectively, right? In
I grant
physics.
that there's a consensus. Yes.
And
Right.
I'm just trying to find a common ground here. Those
Sure.
things exist objectively because they're objects that exist and no opinion changes them. That's
Sure.
what it means to be objective.
Okay.
So if there was another field, like a moral field, it would exist objectively, just like
And
the
that
other
would be
field.
moral stuff, the same way the
Is there a
field has field stuff?
consensus? Is there a scientific consensus? There's a moral field?
No, there's not.
Okay, so this is I guess what I'm getting at is, what is this moral field? Where is this moral field? How do we know this moral field exists?
Well, I use the evidence of patterns of intuition and moral progress and the answers to philosophical problems and dilemmas in morality, field of philosophy, ethics. I think that of all of the fields of ethics, moral realism has the most evidence. God has no evidence. And so I grant that there isn't any strong evidence for objective morality, but the best we have is moral naturalism, and there is none for a God. So it would be a better grounds than a God for morality.
Yeah, well, that's fine. We can leave God off the table. I guess I'm not as concerned with that as I am just kind of wondering. I understand that you're utilizing this as a better explanation for, but where's the actual proof of this moral field?
There isn't any proof.
There is no proof. Okay.
So wouldn't it be equal to God theory?
Well, no,
Based on
there's more
evidential?
evidence for it than God. There's no contradiction.
What evidence is there as matter in the world
as
of
matter?
this moral field?
So the way evidence works is you see a pattern in reality, moral intuition, moral progress. And if that pattern is consistent in the same direction, you make a hypothesis. There is some cause to this. This cause would be a moral field, and you make predictions and say, if these predictions come true, that would be evidence of the pattern, the hypothesis. That's how evidence works.
There's kind of a I got it. There seems to be a problem though, because when I referred you said there's like a law like physics, right? But
Yeah.
not identical to physics, right? Like like physics, right?
No, it is physics. Everything is. I'm a
So
naturalist.
okay, great. So if it's physics, but when I asked about the physics and the laws, you said no, laws aren't actually objectively causing things to occur.
What? I did not say that. No. Yes, laws do cause things. Essentially, yes.
Okay, so in your view, is morality an effect that's caused by previous things?
What? No, it would be one
Matter,
of the
emotion.
fundamental things, kind of like the four fundamental forces. It'd be like an extra fundamental force.
So it's an effect, or is it a cause?
It's a cause.
So morality, in your view, is not an effect; it's a cause.
Yeah, it's like a fundamental
Okay.
force.
So what's the effect?
The truth and falsity of certain actions being moral.
So it causes itself?
No. So it's like there's
Isn't that
an
the
object.
definition of morality?
Yes, that is the
Okay,
definition of morality.
So morality causes morality. It sounds like. Otherwise, how
Oh
are you
my
defining the effect?
So if there's an object,
your brain should hurt. Yeah.
it does, because what you said is so dumb.
Yeah.
So if there's an
No,
object that acts as a definer for a set of values, it's not circular. That's not how circularity works. So like if
Okay.
there is an object that is a square, and the object is what you're using to define a square, that's not circular. The object is the definition of the thing. It's the cause of the thing. So if the essence of morality is an object, then what makes something moral is whether or not it corresponds to that object. This is not circular.
Okay,
That's not what the word circular means.
Okay, so we'll walk through it one more time here.
Okay.
Morality is a cause,
Yes,
right,
it is a
from
thing
your
that
view.
exists which causes. Yes.
okay, and it's physical.
Yes.
But this is your theory. You haven't discovered what it's
Hypothesis.
physically. It's just like it must be physical, right? And what you're saying is this force called morality causes effects that you call moral, right?
It's the grounds of morality. Does that make sense to you? Do you know what that word means?
So
The cause and
Which-
effect
wait,
language is just
wait,
is not
which-
meaningful.
wait,
here.
which word?
is
Which word? Grounds?
Ground,
What is that?
yes.
Yeah, go ahead. Explain it.
So like if something grounds morality, I imagine you're both religious, so you believe God grounds morality. Is that circular? No, because if morality is an object, then the object itself and the properties of the object define or cause moral statements to be true or false. So if morality is an object, like a moral field, then the things that will be moral will be correspondent to that field. So that it makes those things true or false.
Does
if
it
it's
ever
moral.
produce not moral? Doesn't that mean that there's a thing called immoral, that it's its own force that causes different things?
Immorality is the privation of morality. You should know these silly arguments from theists.
No, hold on. You're not arguing from a theist position though. So
Right.
I'm just trying to listen to what I'm asking, and So if you're saying morality is a force and
Yeah.
the effect of that force causes good things to happen,
No.
are you saying
No. It
no? It's
doesn't
not that.
cause good things. It determines what things are moral and what things are not moral. It doesn't cause moral
Wait,
things.
how do forces determine if minds determine?
The same way forces determine what a charm quark is or what spin up and spin down is. It literally determines all of the properties in reality. That's what the forces do.
How does a force develop its own categories?
The
That it knows
forces
what categories
are
are?
the categories. They don't develop anything. They are the categories.
So there are effects of, okay, so there's a force called morality
Yeah.
that produces, in your view, these extensions or effects of that force.
Again, I have
some
no idea. Morality is this field. It defines what morality is. It is the essence, the ground
But
of morality.
what does define mean absent a human using categories? I don't understand how a force can define something. I'm not understanding how a force.
I think he's saying
Good question. I'm
that
not,
essentially what the force shows us in reality that most people based on intuition do, that's what we're calling moral, I think.
Other way around. So there's a force of morality, just like there's a force of gravity. It determines what is, why things fall. That's gravity. It does it. It doesn't define anything. It does the thing. It literally is the thing. There is a force of morality. It is morality. That's it. And then we experience morality in the world through moral intuition and moral progress. And we can come
Okay.
up with definitions, just like we do for gravity, to try to match that pattern. And then when we have these patterns, we say, oh, look, this pattern points to some kind of a thing that exists out there.
is it evolution that leads to this us experiencing this morality?
No, I would say it applies outside of evolution.
Okay, so when you reference, like, let's say gravity, you're saying that the effect we see of falling, are you saying in your view it's caused by what we call gravity? Or you're saying it's
Yes.
identical to gravity?
It's caused by a thing that exists, which we call gravity. Yes.
Okay, so if gravity in this analogy is morality, right?
Yep.
Same. Okay,
Yep.
so if gravity is the cause of falling things,
Yes.
what is, you're saying morality, if you were to swap it in this instance with gravity, you're
Moral
saying
intuition and moral
what's-
progress would be the phenomenon that you're asking about.
okay, progress, right? So
Yeah.
what causes one to discern what the progress is?
What does that mean?
So you
Well,
look out
let
into
me
the
try to
world.
answer. So
Okay.
we see changes in conscious views of morality over time, and those changes follow a pattern, a specific pattern, a single direction. And so
Okay.
the question is why is it singularly directional and not random or
Okay.
have a spectrum? Why is it the same? And if it's the same because of an underlying cause, like a law of physics, that would
Mhm.
be like why we drop things. Why does it always go down? Because there's some underlying thing in physics causing the same pattern every time.
I got it. So my question is, if morality is like a force in the world, like you're saying gravity is, and there's effects, does morality, as you're presenting it, have an effect on how you see things?
Sure.
So there's a physical effect from the force of morality that has an effect on your very interaction with the external world.
Yes, by definition, that's if it's a
Okay,
physical
cool.
law.
All right. So if morality, the force, has an effect on how you observe the world, how do you know you're at the effect of morality or not morality in your observation, your very processes of observation?
How would I know whether I'm under the effect of morality or not? What do you mean?
Mhm.
Like,
So you just said you yourself, your very thinking, your engagement with the external world, your very interpretation of the external world, right? The act of putting a value claim on progress out there in the world, which you're calling a moral effect, if morality, as you're saying it, is a force that has an effect on you, right? A feature of of this world. I'm asking you, how do you know you're at the effect of morality in your processing of the external world?
I'm not sure the question is there. So like, how would I know that it affects some beliefs and not others or something? It's like,
Sure.
there's a hypothesis that morality exists. The hypothesis says there's this past pattern we see in moral intuition, moral progress. This past pattern is explained by the hypothesis. If the hypothesis is true, here's some future prediction we would make that if this prediction is confirmed, that would be evidence of the hypothesis. If the prediction is confirmed, that is evidence of all of the entailments of the hypothesis. So it says that humans are affected by morality in such a way, and it would determine that since the hypothesis is that forcing people to do things they don't consent to is wrong, then every time we force people to do things we don't consent to, that's or feel that that's wrong, that is the effect of morality. And if there's some contradicting feeling we have, like drowning babies is good, God apparently had that feeling, then that one would be contrary to the hypothesis, because the hypothesis says that what's moral is any violations of people's consent. And if there's evidence of the hypothesis that it's true, then we could imply that any belief that drowning babies is good is probably just an immoral being that we shouldn't trust.
Okay. So let's make it more simple. There's two people, and they're both at the effect of morality, and one might be at the effect of the absent or the privation of this force, right? What I'm saying is, if they both interpret the external world, right, and some set of events that they make a moral judgment on, right, some evaluation that they call progress or not progress, moral progress or not moral progress. I'm saying that how are you going to separate out someone who's at the effect of the privation of this moral force, and how are you going to verify that you are in fact at the effect of the moral force while you're observing the external world, not after? Because that's begging a question. I'm asking, if morality as you're presenting it influences how you interpret what you call progress, then how are you going to separate yourself from someone else who might be at the effect of the privation of this force?
Novel prediction. So if you have two alternative hypotheses and you say my hypothesis makes these predictions, yours makes these predictions, whoever gets it right is the one that would say their model, whatever it is, gets to determine which beliefs are the ones that are correctly correspondent to reality and the ones that are not.
So let me jump in. Is there anything like metaphysical concepts like love have anything to do with this? Is there like some sort of like is there some sort of terminologies we can like?
That would be under the category of an intuition, I would think, right, TJ? Like
Maybe.
love. Maybe.
I mean, like intuitions apply to pretty much any feeling. So
The reason
math
I'm
is an
asking
intuition.
And that's just one example, love or whatever. But the reason I'm asking that, I'm trying to figure out, how is this not metaphysical? How is this natural?
Well, metaphysics is just the fundamental nature of reality. So metaphysical naturalism is metaphysics, but it's natural. So metaphysics is just the fundamental nature of reality. If that's natural, then naturalism is metaphysics. So there's no contradiction between metaphysics and naturalism. That's not a thing.
So the category of metaphysics, what's some object you would include in the category of metaphysics?
Reality.
Reality, yeah, like the reality out there, like describing the external world reality.
Anything that exists. So metaphysics is just the fundamental nature of reality.
Okay.
Circles don't exist. Circles are concepts in our brain.
Okay, yeah, that's exactly what I'm trying to. Do circles exist at all?
No, circles are concepts.
Well, this breaks in. The super chat comes in from NSX. He says, "Why don't sociopaths, psychopaths, and many criminals feel this moral force? What evidence is
the same reason? The same reason blind people don't always see things. So the fact that there is a force or there is an objective truth out there doesn't mean that everyone's always going to see it the same. So like light is an objective thing. We agree is an objective thing that exists. Does that mean that everybody sees the same? No, because you see through a medium of your biological body. And so the fact that there is a moral objective force doesn't mean that everyone's going to be determined by this force to believe the exact same things. Just like the fact that there is light doesn't mean we're determined to see things.
Okay, so you said circles don't exist because it's a concept. Isn't reality a concept?
No, reality is a description of things that exist.
Aren't descriptions appeals to concepts? We couldn't describe anything without the use
descriptions
of concepts.
Descriptions are concepts, right? Yes, descriptions are concepts.
So we can't describe reality without using concepts that you deny the existence of, right?
Correct. The concepts don't exist. The object does exist. This is called a sense reference distinction. The sense of the object, the concept doesn't exist. The reference, the object itself does exist. So when I say reality, the word reality, I'm not saying that exists. That is a concept. You're right, that doesn't exist. I'm saying the object to which the word refers, that exists.
Okay, the object exists. They're not the same.
Correct. The word and the object are not the same.
Okay, so then if the morality is a concept, you're saying the thing that you're saying exists is just a force, just like any other force in nature.
Yes.
And that some people might not know they're not at the effect of it, and some people might be at the effect of it and also not know it, right?
I don't know what that means. So like forces affect
in other
everyone
words,
whether or not they know.
right,
So the,
right, exactly.
the knowing
So,
is irrelevant.
well, if you're sort of equating it with some other forces, you know, when we jump or do anything else or like throw something in the air, we can sort of participate in something that that we call gravity and its effects, right? From your view. So like,
Hang on, I'm sorry to cut in, but KS asked for $5. Says I'd ask a question, but according to physics, the answers come first. I don't. That's kind of funny. Anyway,
So-
seems like a bad
so-
joke.
So the question is, if not many people could deny that there's some effect of jumping and coming back down, right?
Sure.
Like it's pretty common. Like I don't know,
Yes.
some percent would be pretty high, right?
Right.
Of the consistency in our experience. So what would you say the consistency of experience is that suggests that we're at the effect of a moral force that's causing an effect? Like what would be
Based
the
on
things?
polls in the field of philosophy, quite a high amount actually believe that we are under some moral realistic force of some
And
kind.
okay, and then based on that being the standard, what percent of the world currently?
Well, just to clarify, I wouldn't use that as a standard. Let's just appeal to
Okay.
popularity. It doesn't matter how many people think that we are or aren't. So like prior to 300 years ago, no one knew about the electromagnetic force or the strong force or the weak force, and no one could interact with them. And so no one believed such a thing existed, but they still did. So whether or not people believe or can do things to understand that there's a force is just irrelevant. I don't care.
Well, isn't your whole model appeal to intuition though?
Patterns and intuition. So it's not saying I have intuition, therefore I'm correct. It's saying there is a pattern in the change of intuitions over time. There's some objective pattern.
Oh shit!
And that objective
we-
pattern is indicative of some underlying cause to the pattern.
Okay.
What is
All right.
Doug?
on here?
Doug,
Doug.
okay, Doug, I figured this out. I know why you're mad at God, Doug.
Oh, I thought you were going to keep it a secret. Don't.
No,
tell
I got
everybody.
it. I got it figured out. I got it figured out.
Bathroom break, beer back.
All
Okay,
right.
no problem, man. It's because he took most of your hair, isn't it, Doug?
See, I
Oh.
told you to get. Nobody would have noticed if you wouldn't have brought it up.
Damn.
But I got to congratulate Jimbob here. Like, this is amazing. You have 310 people watching, and you're talking about philosophy. I mean, the most
I know,
boring
I
thing on the
know,
planet.
I know.
Well,
I
I
tried
mean,
not to.
But
tried
Doug,
not
I
to.
have 1,000 people watching, Doug.
I know, but you got skills.
I'm just, oh, no.
You fucker. I try not to go into philosophy.
You know,
actually,
I feel
for
like
this
that
show.
was a really good tit for tat from Doug. You know, I instantly came on, I talked some shit. He would go right away with the rejoinder. It was good, Doug. It was.
Hey.
How you doing, man? It's nice to
Doug's
see you.
professional.
Doug's quit. He's quick. He's always been
Yeah.
quick. Well, then that means like we have to change the subject, right? Because we're getting deep into stupid objects.
Okay, hang
and
on. Show him
concepts.
the unaliving pod, bro.
Yeah,
Show
let's
him the
just go
unaliving
right
pod.
to let's go. This is the unaliving pod. It's hit
Oh,
the
that was
market.
cool.
You know, you're done in 5 minutes. You could crawl right in there.
Did Elon
And,
Musk make that?
No, he probably wishes, but it's some Baltic nation, I'm sure. So that was one of the things I wanted to bring up. The other that you missed, Doug, the celebration of Parliament, right? And Deputy Jeff. And I'm trying to get a sense of this is. I asked Tom if this is progress. I'll ask you the same thing, Doug.
Stop
is
it, Doug. You're
progress?
making me laugh, bro. Stop it. Stop
that
it. You gotta-
progress, Doug?
To have Down syndrome kids be officers?
Yes, is it progress?
Well, T Jump says it's
No.
progress. No, T Jump says it's progress because
He did?
yeah,
did.
you can't demonstrate a moral standard, Doug.
No. You want big, strong, manly men being on the police force.
That's right.
No, you want to lower the standards so that kids with Down syndrome can be on the police force, Doug. Come on, don't be ridiculous.
Yeah, but didn't we already say we haven't decided, we haven't determined if they lower the standards for him? We don't know if he's qualified or not.
We don't know. We don't know. It's a headline. It could be just like, you know when they send the kid out in NFL at halftime and they run the thing. It's kind of, it might be like that.
So that-
Hey,
wasn't
T
that-
Jump,
that
you just hang on real quick. I'm sorry. I really don't mean to cut you off, Neil. You haven't spoken very much, but Elion asked for $5 Canadian. How does T Jump empirically prove the moral force of nature without causing sense data, which leads to circular reasoning?
That doesn't lead to circular reasoning. So novel predictions, you predict something we don't know yet. You get it right. You can confirm that by using sense data. And that's evidence. It's not circular. So circular is for those who don't know philosophy, is when one of your premises is in the conclusion. If I say, I have a hypothesis, morality is true. If this hypothesis is true, here's a prediction we haven't discovered yet. And then we discover that prediction, that would then be evidence of the conclusion, the hypothesis. There's no premise in the conclusion there. It's not circular.
I would like to answer that question. It is circular reasoning, but it's virtuous.
It's good. It's good circular.
I've heard that from theists before.
Yeah. I've learned a lot from theists. They help me out a lot. Like, God bless them.
Yeah, the
Circular
vicious,
arguments are cool as long as they're virtuous.
virtuous, vicious circularity distinction is something made up by theists and doesn't actually really exist in the rest of philosophy.
I know, but I think it's actually clever. I like it. I mean, it's a good try.
It's good when God does it, just like drowning babies.
Yeah.
Well, just I don't know Pine Creek if you've heard his view before, but he's saying that morality is like a force, like gravity is a force. And I was asking how he would know someone was at the effect of this force called morality, or how would they know they were absent the effect of morality while they're looking at the world and making judgments, not after, while, because it seems like, Tom, your view is look to the world and that'll determine whether or not you're at the effect of morality or not. I'm saying, how do you know the force, as you're saying it, is not affecting your very interpretation of the world before you come to your conclusions?
So I don't quite understand that. So like,
Well, before you answer, Tom, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut in, but
right.
Pine Creek, Doug, where's your beer, dude? Go get a beer. What are you doing?
You know, I'm trying to lose weight because
You gotta have a beer with me, Doug.
I don't have any in the house. I could ask my
Oh my
born-again
God.
Christian wife to go buy some alcohol and cigarettes if you like.
Do it, Doug. Take one for the team, brother.
Hey, Kath. I would love to
Go ahead,
smoke a
guys,
cigar
go
during
ahead.
this.
Logan says $5. B.S. Lewis wants to join if you want to upgrade to your sophistry.
He's my subscriber. Don't let him in. No,
Don't let him. He's going to simp for you. Yeah. Okay. No simping.
Well,
Maybe
and
you'll
then-
replace him when Doug gets tired.
Well, we'll get right back to T-Jump, but Kathuski asked for $5. How is morality a force if it can be ignored and nothing is actually objectively compelled by it?
It's like gravity. Like the forces are determined by their magnitude. So like gravity, we can fight against gravity. We can jump up and down. A strong force, you can't do it. No matter how strong you are, you'd never be able to overcome the strong force. Gravity is 40 orders of magnitude weaker than the strong force. And if there's a force that's 40 orders of magnitude weaker than gravity, you could essentially just ignore it. It would never affect you. So the fact that there is a force doesn't mean you're determined by it to do whatever the force is attempting to do. So again, it's the same thing as before. Forces do not determine you to be subject to them unless they're super forces.
Me and Tom disagree here.
Are you Googling or?
No,
What's
I'm sharing the link. So
Hang on, what's the
Oh,
disagreement? I got to hear the disagreement here. What is it?
Yeah.
Doug?
What's the disagreement?
I think well, I want to make sure I don't straw man T-Jump. Tom, you think morality is objective, right?
Yep.
Yeah. See, I don't.
Me neither.
Yeah.
disagree.
So I would say on some things it's pretty close. We can get closer, but for the majority of things, no, it's relatively
really a mixed bag.
subjective.
This
Wait a
really
minute. Wait a minute, Doug. You just contradicted yourself because if you said even one example is objectively true, then you believe in
No, but I'm
objectivity.
saying it could be. I am open to the idea of morality being objective. Like maybe God is real and is the foundation, and that's why.
That would
But
make
even
it
then, it's
subjective.
subjective because exactly.
Doesn't that just mean it doesn't exist though? I don't know why you would say, oh, it's subjective, but in this instance it does. I kind of agree with Tom that if you were to say it's subjective, it's almost like saying it just doesn't exist. Whatever you're
objective
referring
morality.
to.
Doesn't exist. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not even subjective morality. It's just something you're calling morality that's likely a preference or something you
preference.
don't like. So, but then it doesn't make sense because if you carry that over, I always use this example, like it doesn't make sense to go eat.
why
at a
don't you
restaurant.
shut up, Jimbob, so that because I could see I want to hear the
No.
views.
Yeah,
you kind of just jump right
Andrew's
in,
smart.
cut everybody off like
he
you
wants
did.
the atheists to disagree with each other. That's
I don't
good
care if
leadership.
the atheists disagree. I just want to hear the distinction in the worldview.
I'm just tired of hearing the subjective morality. Just be honest and say morality doesn't exist. Nothing's actually wrong or immoral in the world. Just say it.
Well, when you say actually, you mean objective.
Yeah, like X event action is just
But I
wrong.
could concede, for sake of argument, that objective morality exists and say, so what? How do we know what it is? I want to know what it is. And each specific case, like there's so many things we do in life. Is this right? Is this wrong? There's some clear-cut ones, but a lot of them are gray areas. If there's this objective morality out there, I want to know what's the reliable way to tap into it. And if you say the Bible, I mean, most people in the world will laugh at you. If you say the Quran, you know, the Muslims might say, yeah, cheers.
Most people?
Novel predictions, Doug. It's novel
Yeah.
predictions.
Most of the world are not Christian, Jimbob.
Oh, the Bible. Okay, fair enough. I was
Yeah.
going to say like some
Actually, I
religious
think
book.
isn't the majority population of the world Christian?
No.
Are you sure?
It's
If we
2.2
take
billion.
if we take the segment of the various beliefs, isn't the largest belief Christianity?
Okay, depends what you mean by segment. What are you talking about? Like 2.2?
Well, I'm just saying if you take atheism and then agnosticism and then all the different world religions, isn't
yeah.
Christianity the largest?
It might be close, but yeah, you could be right.
I think it's the largest.
But you know the people who claim to be Christians are flag waving phonies, though, right, Andrew? You know that.
Yeah, so are a lot of the
Yeah.
people who claim to be atheists. They don't give a shit.
That's true. That's true. Good point.
So what would you ask T-Jump here if he's saying it's a physical thing? I mean, wouldn't you have what kind of contentions would you immediately have if he's trying to make it a natural occurrence in the world?
How to measure it?
Yeah,
Right.
and how would you falsify that claim? Like, I kind of think it's unfalsifiable, isn't it?
No. So it's like I make novel predictions. I say,
Hang on. Do you know what unfalsifiable means, Doug?
Means your mom.
It means you can
Make
know when
sure
it's
you
wrong.
know what unfalsifiable means, or you're going to get it
Actually-
here, Doug.
Yes, some novel predictions. I have a hypothesis that makes predictions about how things will change in the future, and if it doesn't do that, then that would falsify my hypothesis.
Okay, like the future that we're evolving to a better moral world every decade, something like that. Make that
Sort of.
prediction.
So my model is that all conscious life forms will develop a morality that follows the same pattern, which is that involuntary imposition of will is wrong, forcing people to do things they don't consent to. And the more resources and intelligence you have, the more kinds of imposition you will see as immoral as time progresses, and that applies.
You
to
should say
all
"excuse me"
things.
when you burp, T-Jump, because there's a 5% of women watching right now.
If I could
Yeah, if you
burp
want that
again,
other
I
audience.
would do it. If I could just like as hard as I
Keep it
could.
under control, T-Jump. Keep it under control. Kidding. Go ahead.
Okay, but let's say you make a prediction under your model.
Yep.
And 100 years go by, and you have certain metrics, and the world is better. Couldn't you attribute that to something else rather than this moral law?
Yeah, but that's irrelevant. So like you can always do that with any hypothesis ever. It's called the problem of underdetermination. So you can say like, if Einstein is right about gravity, he predicts gravity will cause light to bend around the sun. Couldn't you explain that as something else? Well, yes, obviously. There's infinitely many other things you could explain that as.
But how would you show the causal link, though? That's what I'm getting at.
the prediction part? So if you are able to predict it will happen before we know it and get it right, that's evidence of whatever your hypothesis was. And if someone else can just say, well, I can just explain that as an alternative, that's called post hoc reasoning. It doesn't matter. So the causal link is whichever hypothesis can predict things consistently before we know it and get it right. That one is the one that gets all the attribution.
Okay, but if two make the same prediction, but they're different causal things, let's say one's God and one's the moral law, then it's what do you do then?
50-50. So like if you have two hypotheses that make all of the same novel predictions and they both get them right, they both get evidence that you can just pick whichever one. You'd be rational to pick either one.
Flip a coin and become a Christian.
Well,
But you're talking about causality though, Tom. So wouldn't it, for you to do that process you just summarized, wouldn't you need access to the cause and introduce it and remove it?
no.
You don't need that for sort of the hypothesis that you're posing.
No, you don't need access to the cause at all. You need access to the effects. You don't care about the cause.
So how do you know when the cause is absent, but you have the same effect, like Doug asked? How would you
Novel
know?
prediction. So if you have a model that has predictions, and the predictions say the cause is, I don't know, an invisible sky daddy, and the invisible sky daddy will heal your legs whenever you pray to him. You can't prove it wasn't aliens. It could be aliens. Like if every time you pray, an amputee's limb gets healed, only when you pray to Yahweh. That's evidence of Yahweh. Like, could you eliminate the fact that it could have been aliens? No, you can't, but that doesn't make a difference. Again, that's underdetermination and post hoc reasoning. it's still evidence of God because you used a hypothesis. You were able to predict future things no one else knew and get it right. And even if it happens to be caused by something else and you got it right by luck, it would still be rational to believe you and your hypothesis because you were the only one to accurately predict the evidence of the future.
Well, I mean, if you take that to like, let's just say we observed for 100 years the movement of the stars, and I observed it and documented it so much that it was rich in my mind, such that I can recall it at any time and any point, and I can tell someone right next to me that I predicted something. So as long as I introduce a cause, even though really the cause of knowing this is just observation over time and documentation, so I have access to data.
Well, that wouldn't be a novel prediction. That would be something we already know. So novel means something we don't already know. Like if you predict the sun's going to rise tomorrow, like anybody can predict that. It's based on past data. But if you predict, so novel prediction doesn't mean looking at the past data and predicting it will continue. It's looking at the past data and predicting there's something that's going to change in the pattern that we don't expect. So like mine is that we will see rocks falling on people as immoral. That's a prediction I make about distant future. That would be break the normal pattern of what we consider morality. And if that's right, if sometime in the future the consensus is that rocks falling on people is immoral, that would be great evidence for my hypothesis because no other models predict that. It's a very extreme hypothesis.
Does the force of morality, in your view, cause earthquakes that kill people?
No, that's gravity.
Okay, but can gravity be immoral if it causes the same effects as morality?
It doesn't make any
as your
sense.
moral force?
So the gravitational force and the strong force and the weak force, they're different forces. They act differently. So it's not like one force forces or affects the other force. So if there's a moral force and that moral force can determine what is or isn't moral, that doesn't mean it affects or the other forces have anything to do with that or affect
this
that.
This is why I asked the question, Bobby C. Thank you, $10. I don't understand how morality could be physical force like gravity that causes effects. Is there a threshold that is reached at which morality causes effects on inorganic matter? I would actually add when it doesn't. How would you know it's not affecting some other like lower forms of matter? Like if we're just pure matter from your view, Tom, I don't understand how morality is only peculiar to this thing you call a human, this clump of matter, but not, a deer or some other, waterfall.
Well, so all conscious agents include deers. So we actually know it does, that morality does follow the same patterns.
When a lion eats another animal, is it because it's another species that makes it okay? Is it where's the morality?
Any killing of any conscious agent ever would be immoral. Obviously, the lion doesn't have the same level of intellectual acuity we do, and so it wouldn't feel the effects of morality to the same degree we do.
But it has to do it to survive, though.
The fact that something has to do something to survive doesn't make it moral. It's a natural appeal to nature fallacy. So something can have to do something, and it's still bad, like my previous example.
But this conflicts with natural selection and evolution and survival, right?
Yeah, those are immoral. Those are horribly immoral. Evolution is terrible.
I don't know. I'm just asking. I don't know.
Evolution's immoral. Yeah. Doug, you were going to say something. I saw your eyebrows go down. I saw your hand go up.
Well, I'm not an advocate for lion jail. I just want to say that. I think
bear
lions
jail,
should
we
be
call it over
free
here.
to roam around and kill what they want.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're making a prediction of let's say morality is going to get better, by what metrics do you use to say it is indeed better? Because if I'm in 1950 and I say make a novel prediction that by the year 2024 men can menstruate, and we made my prediction was right, but you could still say, well,
Progress.
Has morality actually gotten better?
Right. So just saying it gets better is nothing. It doesn't give us any explanations at all. So my prediction is I look at the pattern and say the change in morality is any involuntary imposition of will is immoral. And as time goes on, we see more involuntary impositions of will as being immoral. And so I'm not just saying things get better. I'm saying as we progress, we see more things as impositions as immoral. So like stopping men from menstruating, or stopping trans kids from having adoption, or stopping men from having in vitro uteruses or whatever. Like all of those things would be impositions of will, which society as it progresses will tend to begin to see as immoral. So mine isn't just things will get better, is that as time progresses, we will begin to see more impositions as immoral. So there's specific examples of what we will see, not just things will get better.
B.S. Lewis asks if assisted self-deletion is immoral.
Perfectly moral.
Moral?
Perfectly
it's moral.
Yep. As long as it's a consenting adult who is a healthy state of mind, perfectly moral.
And how do you determine that? I mean, I might sound stupid, but I'm just wondering.
Leave that up to a psychologist, people who are experts in the field. I am not.
So I have another question. I just have to get more clarity on this. If morality, in your view, is
Hang on.
Go ahead.
On. What's the next topic on this?
Okay,
Did we have a bunch of shit here? You're holding the whole thing hostage just to rip T-Jump apart.
Sure,
And the thing
sure.
is, it's like, fine, that's fair enough. But we got tons of shit to cover here.
Well, yeah, you can introduce another topic. Doug, feel free to. Any of you guys can. It's just, to me, we
Doug,
can sort
I've
this
always
out
been
in a
curious
debate.
because you have been something. It's kind of interesting. There is this. It's a strange phenomenon, but there are atheists and Christians who align politically across the board in ways that are very, very strange. And I see you over there. You're kind of a sneaky bastard, Doug. Like I watch your program from time to time. It seems like you want to utilize us as some kind of political force in order to institute some kind of crazy right-wing lunatic agenda, Doug.
Secular Christianity, we call it,
Yeah.
right?
You're giving away all my secrets.
Yeah.
You mentioned the hair and now this. I
Yeah.
mean,
What's going on with that, Doug?
You're a secular Christian populist. Prove us wrong.
Totally.
I think it's like I went to that what's it called? Turning Point America Fest 2023
You went
last
to
month.
Turning Point USA, Doug.
Yeah.
No,
Oh,
did he?
come
No,
on.
did he?
I did.
You went to
As,
Con
was
Inc.
to-
bullshit.
as a interviewer, my friend
Oh.
Reed had a booth and I was conducting interviews.
He's got
But-
clips. You can watch the whole interviews on his channel. It's great.
Yeah, in real life, Pine Creek. And so I think politically, you can, on many different issues, Christians and atheists and Muslims can align and have the same view. Like I agree with a lot of your points, Andrew, that atheism is kind of a dead end and they're really bad at reproducing. I encourage atheists to have more coitus, but only if they can afford their kids. I don't think you should be dependent on the government.
What do you kind of do, though, about this materialist issue? So when I think about this issue, this one's really a hard one to get past for me. So I think to myself, what if Doug is right? What if T-Jump is right? What if I'm some kind of like fringe lunatic and I just hold on to these values because they're comfortable and I can just kind of outsource my thought patterns to other people who can just kind of tell me what is or isn't moral, right? But then I think to myself, you fuckers don't breed at all. And you're going to make the entire human race go extinct. And so why shouldn't we kind of follow those values? That's the thing, Doug. Like, how do I reconcile that, bro?
Just to clarify, what was the materialist
Stay a Christian.
problem?
That's how you reconcile it.
What's
Just
that?
You stay a Christian then.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm just kind of think about it and I go,
I actually think most people can't handle being an atheist, to be honest.
It's true.
Are you saying that you're a little too highbrow for me, Doug?
Me, T-Jump, and Neil, like we out-evolved evolution. I mean, you're looking at some really rare species right now.
You're talking about the deadness inside.
Neil did
you
not
always,
out-evolve evolution, bro.
No,
Come on.
no, he didn't.
This guy, if there was a missing link, they would slap Neil right front and center. And people
bad.
would walk by and they'd
So
be like,
bad.
well, that makes sense. That makes sense.
But in all seriousness, Andrew, you bring up a very good point because I think religion exists for a reason, and it is to give hope, meaning, and purpose, and to aid in things like reproduction. And it is a huge void in the atheist community, if there's such a thing. T-Jump is actually trying to make some type of atheist church to fill that void. I think T-Jump, it's in vain. It's never going to happen. Because in order for a community to really coalesce...
Well, that becomes like the cult of personality, right?
The Church of Physics, right?
Yeah, well, in order for a group, a community to really bind together, they need something that it's almost like they need a crazy belief to get around, to come around together and say, you believe that too? Like, look at the Flat Earth Society.
You mean
Those
like
guys are
objective
tight.
morality?
It's kind of boring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't
Well,
give
what
you-
would be
I
the-
thought of
what
this,
would be the
Doug.
ritual?
I know.
Well, hang
you're
on.
right.
It's a way more. Isn't it a way more seductive message, T-Jump, to be like, just coom, bro, just coom without consequence. Let's just
No.
zoom boom coom, right? We could just go out. We can have all the promiscuous sex that we want. absent the consequences because we've got all this birth control shit like that. Isn't that a way more seductive message?
Actually, no. So there's actually a number of studies on this that show that the most successful kinds of religions are the ones that have the most strict, litigious kinds of ridiculous limitations on your actions. So using people's guilt is a more effective method than using a carrot in this.
Oh my God.
Oh,
Damn.
I am so sorry. Holy
Yeah.
shit.
Andrew
I'm
doesn't
sorry.
care
I'm
about-
sorry, T-Jump.
don't
Go ahead, bro.
apologize. Don't
I'm a
apologize.
man if I'm offended.
Andrew doesn't care about female followers, so it's all. That's just normal. So what would be the ritual in the Church of T-Jump then? You know, are there any rituals at the church if you were
We
to
can make
have
some
it?
for you.
Yeah. What I mean, what would something be? I mean, what's the goal? What's the ultimate goal if you were to have a church?
Oh, the goal is my morality. So my morality of limiting the amount of things we force people to do. So like lowering the cost of living, providing affordable housing, providing affordable medication in America.
But that kind of contradicts what you want to do, because in order to lower housing costs, you're going to have to interfere with the market.
No,
Because why the housing price is high right now? Isn't it not the market?
well, it is, but we don't have to interfere with the market. We can just buy a building like anybody else and then keep the prices the same. And so we haven't violated anybody's consent. We've consensually bought a building.
Okay, so free will socialism.
What? No, because we're still making a
Free will
profit. We're making a profit. What are you talking about, Doug?
They're in the market.
If you're making a profit, then
Yeah.
it should happen organically. You don't even need to. Like, why isn't it happening already?
It is. What are you talking about?
Or what are you talking about? Actually, I guess
Well,
I got to.
so like the goal of the church is to provide affordable housing, not free housing, affordable. So we still charge money for housing. We buy an apartment building, rent out the rooms. We just keep it at an affordable rate. So it's going to be slightly lower than the market rate, but it's still making a profit. Like there's no market rate.
Okay,
Is
but
not.
why do you think affordable housing doesn't exist without that?
It does in many cases. It's just not preferred. The market prefers money. Owners prefer money to not money.
But yours would still be for profit, yes?
Yes, but for less profit. So people don't usually
Okay.
voluntarily limit the amount of profit they make.
Why would
good
someone, if their goal is to make money, why would someone make less money instead of more money?
They wouldn't,
Then why would your plan work?
because our goal isn't to make money. Our goal is to be moral. And so we make as much money as possible while being moral, which is less than the market value.
Right, but then it's like I said, it's free will socialism. It's or benevolence. It's.
I want to know have you talked to an economist that actually said that this is possible? Because the market seems very competitive already. People are already trying to get lower. They're trying to get people to rent.
What
their
already
apartment.
exists. Like there's literally a multi-million-dollar foundation here in Minnesota called the Greater Minneapolis Housing Fund, which has about 1,500 units, and they offer them at affordable rates, and they give loans out. So the loan I'm applying for is like 1.4 million or something. And this is a massive thing. So these happen all over the place. There's lots of places that do this. It's just not what typically people who own buildings want. What they want is money. And this isn't socialism is the means of the production being owned by the people. This is not socialism. It's still private, still like the church owns the things and it still makes money. It just doesn't make as much money as it can. It's kind of like the difference between a payday loan versus a standard loan. Payday loans are meant to gouge you so they make as much money as possible, whereas a standard loan doesn't charge as high rates or interest rates, slightly lower, because it's not as evil. And so we can do even lower than that and still make a profit. It's just fine. The markets are not that competitive. The markets are garbage. They overcharge an insane amount for no reason whatsoever other than they want money. It's not competitive. No, it's competitive to make more money.
I don't even know where to start with these socialistic ideas. I mean,
What's the definition of socialism, Doug? Let's go.
well,
Let's do it. I want to get in on this.
I'm being tongue in cheek, but go ahead, Andrew.
Well, no, you go ahead, Doug. I didn't mean to cut in. I'm just saying I also would like to kind of dive into the socialist aspects of these things. So, T-Jump, when you define socialism, you don't consider the march towards socialism to have to be complete before you're kind of at least expressing that these are ideas which might lead to that and likely will, right?
No, they won't. Like that's a slippery slope fallacy. Like, so
Yeah, but the
socialism-
slippery slope fallacy is only really fallacious if we can't point at a slippery slope that happened before. Like, we can look at the communist revolutions of old. We can look at the progression of homosexuality in society, things
How
like
is that an
this.
example of a slippery slope of people providing less than perfect market compensation leading to socialism? Because that seems to be the slope you're implying. Is that?
Yeah, because we're not talking about a command economy where there's a dictatorship. We're talking about the free market's still there. You still have choices. You still have. T-Jump's talking about entering into the market and not being the governmental command economy that you guys.
Hey, that's fair enough. I just kind of want to hear the outline. I'm not trying to even do a criticism just yet. I just want to hear an outline, kind of what he's after here.
Well, I'm not after anything, so I'm not trying to redefine economics. I'm starting a company, which is a nonprofit company that provides housing. So we're not doing anything to the government or the economy.
I thought you said it was for profit.
Well, no, nonprofits still make a profit, Doug. So nonprofits are not.
So they have to pay the CEO, right? Who is you?
Nonprofits,
right? Who is you? You're going to be the CEO,
yes,
of course.
I'm
right?
going to be the Joel Osteen. I'm going to have my 6 jets and my books, absolutely. But yeah, so nonprofits still make a profit. They still fund the company. They still pay employees. The goal is just to not make an exorbitant amount of profit and to enable people to afford living so that they can spend money on other things that they want.
Is $1 million a year too much profit for you as the CEO of your nonprofit, T-Jump?
I'm going 10 million minimum.
You're going 10 million minimum.
Okay, here's the problem I see with this T-Jump. Let's say you represents a small percentage of the marketplace.
Sure.
Okay. The value of apartments, the value of homes is determined by the cash flow, rental cash flow, or the amount of material it costs to build it, right?
Sort of. Yeah, mostly like the annual income times 5 or whatever.
Yeah. So if you're making basically no profit after you pay your employees.
Well, we're still making profit, Doug. Nonprofits are very profitable. As Andrew mentioned, if you just Google
fine. You're making profit, but not exorbitant, right?
We're making it so that the people don't have to pay exorbitant prices to live. We can still make an exorbitant profit off of that.
Right, but you're making less than the scumbag landlord.
Yes,
yeah, okay.
yes.
Okay. So now how do you scale up this? Because now, okay, you did it once and it seems like it's working. And now you want to buy another apartment complex or build from scratch. But the value of those apartment complexes that you're going to build, it takes money.
Yep.
And so what's going to happen is you got a plot of land that you would like to buy so you could scale up.
Sure.
You're going to be outbid by the guys who are making exorbitant profits.
Sure. If all of the profits
how do
are being bid,
how do you scale this up?
Because there's lots of properties available all over the place.
I know, but you're always going to be over. Someone's going to bid more than you because they have more money.
No, that's not the case at all. Like people with more money usually selectively pick the best buildings, which I would too. People like the lower income buildings are not selected for at all. Nobody wants.
No, it doesn't matter what class of building is.
It does. Doug.
If it's an auction,
go to LoopNet. Go to LoopNet. You can find many buildings prices are dropping. Like there's one right next to the University.
I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm saying you're going to be outbid because you're making less cash.
No one. There are many buildings no one is building on. No one. Zero bids. Zero bids on a building. There are lots of buildings that are available that no one buys.
Why do people buy them?
Because they don't want to. Because they don't want the work. They don't want to try to repair it. They don't want to try to fix it. They don't want to deal with it.
Come
so
on,
there's
really?
lots and lots of reasons.
Where are you going to get the money to repair them?
Right.
The same place we do ever. If we have an organization that's already making a profit, we already have the money to repair it. So like if I already had an apartment building, I could buy another one and repair it.
Is it true that you would have less money than another business who would have money to repair it?
Yes.
Does this church require tithing?
No.
So you're going to be out repaired.
Definitely.
If they decided
compelled with a gun for sure.
It sounds like the church doesn't do it as good.
T-Jump, have you ever run a business before? By
yes,
chance?
I have 3 of them. Yes.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure. And are they services or products?
Services.
That's true. Okay.
Dancing. What was the other one?
Yeah.
Dancing. That's fucking Doug. Hyperbased asks. I got a few questions for T-Jump and for Doug, if you guys don't mind humoring me real quick. Hyperbased asks for $5. T-Jump's moral predictions can only be realized on the moral action of theists who make up the majority of the world's population. Is T-Jump just a theist ultimately,
or a deist?
It doesn't make sense. Like the fact that morality will be enacted by
Oh my
people.
God.
Most people are
Finish chewing your food, you dickhead. What kind of shit is
Who's going
this?
to follow a church? Who's
What
going to
the
follow your
fuck?
church,
The
dude?
Church of Chews on stream?
I consent to eat and stream at the same time. So,
We do not consent. We do not consent to the.
so whether or not theists are people too, and also are affected by morality and gravity, it'd be like asking, is Einstein a secret Christian because gravity affects Christians more than anybody else? It's just a silly question.
All right. Okay, so this one's mean, but I'm going to read it because the guy sent in $10. Okay, I don't even know what he means by this, but he sent it in. He said, "As T-Jump, if his girlfriend makes him prep the bull." This is your time for a witty
I don't actually know
retort,
what
but
that
your
means.
mouth is full. Your mouth is
Yeah.
full. No witty retort. That's what you get.
I don't even know what that means. I don't know what that sentence literally means.
No.
Logan asks for $5. Are these morality particles in the room with you right now, T-Dump? Wouldn't they have to be, right?
Yeah, it's a field, so it wouldn't be a particle, it'd be a field. But yeah,
So you can't block it?
no.
No blocking the morality field.
Who put forth this philosophy? I'm wondering. Is this like some Kantian shit or something? Like, what is this?
Well, I did. It's my theory. What are you talking about?
Oh, you.
Well,
this is you.
Like moral naturalism doesn't come from me, unfortunately, but my particular model comes from me.
Okay, with the field stuff, does that come from somewhere else? I've never. I think I've heard this, but it's never been convincing to me.
Yeah, there's a lot of models that think that morality is a natural thing. I'm specifically the only one who says it's a field as a way to just make an analogy to physics. But
Wait a
there's lots of
second. This
models
is,
that say like it's.
this is a great question,
natural
T-Jump. Takawa, $5. Thank
Yes,
you. Since
it's
the universe imposes conditions of life, is it immoral? Actually, from your view, if we don't have any say in the imposition of what you call morality as a force, that would mean morality itself, as you pose it, is immoral. A force
No.
that we have no say on its imposition on us.
No.
I think that's the end of your model.
No, I think it's the other way around. I think the universe is immoral because the
Correct.
universe is.
So
Well, the universe is a description of all these things, but we're talking about a specific force that we don't have a choice of its imposition on us, right?
no, it doesn't impose anything on you. It's a truth statement. So like if 1 + 1 = 2 isn't imposing on you the truth of 1 + 1 = 2. So if
Well,
there's
that's
a
a
fact of
descriptive-
morality, there's a facts that are true. It's not imposing on you the truth of those other facts. That's
No,
not how important
morality
works.
from your view you says it's causal, whereas math is descriptive. So your example of math isn't valid here.
No,
We're talking about
the truth statement is the analogy there. So if there is a fact of the matter that this is moral, like it's drowning babies is immoral.
Wait a minute.
That's not imposing anything onto you. It's just a truth statement. So like the
Let me
fact that
jump in.
there's a truth statement isn't an imposition.
So the universe unfolding in reality, we call it reality, right? Evolution is within. There's a process of evolution happening in the universe. There's all these different processes happening, and these are immoral. And your morality field is outside of the universe. It just is. It's how does the universe that's immoral produce these fields of morality that are moral?
So
True.
again, I mentioned that earlier, the strength of the field. Like if there's a weak field, like the strong force, and there's a strong or a weak force like gravity and a strong force like the strong force, gravity can't overturn the strong force unless you're in a black hole or whatever. So the forces can compete and go against each other just fine. There's no problem with this. And so if there's a moral force, and it's not outside of the universe, it's just another force in the universe.
It's another force. All right.
And so like gravity could kill you or make a Hitler who kills you, and that would be immoral, just like how the gravity can compress the strong force into black holes. The forces can do things that can contradict other forces or overpower other forces just fine.
So the question is, before we move on to another one, before we all get yelled at for Andrew for going back to morality, yes or no?
We had a great
the
thing
force-
going. We did.
force-
We had a
the
great
force-
thing going, and then you
You know
fucking
what? I'm gonna
ruined
abandon
it,
I'm gonna
Jimbob.
abandon it. I'm gonna abandon it. Forget it. Doug, I'm gonna give you the floor. You could say whatever. You can continue a topic or bring in a new one if you want.
Wait, have you guys talked about the patriarchy yet?
Let's talk about the patriarchy.
Yeah,
I
sure.
love the
Yeah,
patriarchy.
yeah. Another force.
Because it's very interesting. I've been watching some YouTube videos, been watching some of the things you say, Andrew, and people ask, or a lot of people on the left especially just assume that patriarchy is bad. And I always ask why. Like, what is it fundamentally bad? Is it
Because women can't be stupid, annoying bitches, Doug.
like I talked about today on my live stream where I said, didn't the patriarchy give women the right to vote?
Mhm.
And
That was the biggest mistake they ever made.
What?
Right?
I think it's just
We had a good thing going here, you know, and then a bunch of kind of weak, feminized men who were, you know, well, they had their reasons, but Doug, it was bad. Wasn't it a bad idea ultimately?
Well, right now I'm leaning no, but I could be convinced otherwise because I have seen some scientific
Doug,
studies.
you remain unconvinced.
I'm like Matt Delante here. I have seen some studies. Like you guys know I'm a naturalist, so I think we evolved, men and women evolved with differences for a reason because it helped our survival. But when I look at studies of, there was like 5 basket of values, seeking truth, academic rigor, and one was sensitivity to people's feelings, something like that. And women always valued the sensitivity, those social things, more than men did.
Mm-hmm.
Terrible voting patterns.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly right, Jimbob. Like if you want to guarantee Democrat victories for the next, I don't know how many election cycles,
Let women vote.
No, don't. If you want Democrat victories, you would ban men from voting. If you want Republican
Then
victories,
how come the trends don't show that, Doug?
no, they
How
do.
come no, they don't.
Like, did you hear what I said? If you want
Yeah,
Democrats,
I heard what you said,
yeah.
but what I'm saying to you is that here's what the trends show. Trends show overwhelmingly that men vote Republican.
Right. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
What Doug
No, I
said
don't-
was, if you ban men, Democrats will win.
oh
if
yeah,
you
yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I thought
Why are Democrats winning with men not being banned then? Because of the women? Just that's what you're saying? Just
Yeah,
yeah.
and
So
if
women
you made
tend
it
to
illegal-
vote for security. They tend to vote for security, and men tend to be more risk takers. So they don't mind being a little bit more bold, and they tend to not vote against liberties, or they tend to not vote also against economic interests. Women tend to vote more for security and social safety nets, and that's why you see more of them gravitate towards Democrat voting patterns than you do Republican voting patterns. Whereas men overwhelmingly, well, not overwhelmingly now because we're so polarized, but traditionally it's always been that they voted more right.
Like they've actually done through exit polling. I don't know if you can make me big, Jimbob.
Yeah, I can.
Don't make Doug big. We guys see his bald head. Make sure that whole fucking thing covers your screen, Doug.
It's the best I could.
was that counties? You got counties up there? Is that what that is?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
there you
so
go.
through exit polling, if only men voted, this was, I think, the 2018 midterms. It would be 249 to 186 for Republicans. Now, the flip side is, if only women voted,
It would all be Democrat. Yeah.
it would be 275 to 160.
Yep.
And so you can get interesting stuff like this. So if women couldn't vote and we had the same idea of what Republican means, what Democrat means, Democrats would not win.
Yeah.
They wouldn't even have a party.
In America, like if you actually do the same study in Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Germany, the Democrats still win.
Well, prove it.
I did. They've won.
No, well, what do you mean? Women can vote there.
It's
That's
you can
not
do the
proved.
polls. Like you do the polls yourself. Like there's not.
Yeah, show
there's
me
not
the
a-
polls because I don't believe you.
There are a number of polls that show that the culture in those
Yeah,
countries
name
for
one.
both men and I can if you want. I can pull them up. It's
Go
not-
ahead,
it's
name
a
one.
non-controversial
Name
thing.
a
Like,
single. No, it's not a non-controversial thing.
it
You're
is,
full
it
of
is.
shit.
It's
If
the
women
fact.
didn't vote inside of those countries, it would also be right wing. T-Jump.
No, that's stupid.
Then prove it.
Prove
I'll
it.
wait.
You made a claim. Prove it.
Well, to
I'll
steal man,
What
teach
you're
jump a
saying?
bit.
No,
Oh, you
no.
did
This is bullshit. Come on, T-Jump. Show us.
I think what T-Jump is getting at is the divide between right and left is different in those countries than here, and that I would agree with T-Jump.
Yeah.
But I would also agree with Andrew that it would still, even though that divide's different, it would still lean more right if women didn't vote.
Yeah, it always will. Basically everywhere. Now, they do have a different dynamic on what they consider the right-left dichotomy, but essentially it's still the same. You're looking at people who will vote for social safety nets versus people who won't. You're still going to find that's overwhelmingly female inside of the Nordic nations as well. So this is almost across the board. This is one of the big problems. And by the way, this actually came up with suffragettes themselves during the time frame of women's liberation, the original first wave feminism. they would discuss this in depth, that they didn't want the responsibility of voting. And they thought that if they did, they could wreck things because they would vote based on, well, you know, female intuition, things like this, which often moves more towards security.
So, Andrew, what would be your strongest argument against women voting?
Well, so here's what I would say. I'd say initially, women didn't actually want that right. The overwhelming majority of women were against it. Now, the kind of the left-wing pushback which comes in is that, wait a second, no, that's not. Well, the reason is because they were indoctrinated by the evil fucking patriarchy.
What
right?
if I granted that and said, what about today, though?
Oh, can I interrupt for a second? So I found the poll for you. The gender gap in Norwegian voting behavior, October 2007, Scandinavian political studies. In the period from 1957 to 1981, women in Norway voted less frequently for the socialist parties than did men. Oops.
Okay, send over the study.
How do I do that?
Just
Can you
link it in my
the
chat.
gender gap in Norwegian voting behavior. It's the first thing that pops up.
I would add to that, Doug. Go ahead,
real
Neil.
quick,
Go
I
ahead,
can
Neil.
almost guarantee it's not going to say what you want
It's
it to say. but
literally the
we'll
first
dig in.
sentence.
All right. While you're looking at that, I just want to say, even if that was true, that women didn't want the right to vote when the suffragette movement was going on, today that's a different answer. Women do want to vote today, right? So
Yeah, but
we're
that's
talking about-
because the mistake was giving women what they want to begin with. So, I mean, appealing to their wants is a problem in general. Another problem, Doug, I think with voting is, you know, the way we vote in a representative republic democracy, there's representatives, right, that speak or stand and promise on our behalf. And then if there's a representation of the house, right, the home, if it's not just the man, and it could be the woman and the man if they're split, right, it gives having this dual voting inside the house actually necessitates some sort of split.
Hang on, real
right?
quick. T-Jump, do you see to the right of the screen? You can link that study right there.
Uh-oh, study versus study. Can we get some
I'm
studies?
not on your channel. I'm
Can
on
we
your
get
channel.
No, you are. You joined
What?
via StreamYard.
Oh,
It
you
just
mean the
says
StreamYard? Oh,
private.
Yeah,
There's
it's
a
StreamYard.
private.
You can link it in the private chat, right in StreamYard.
And the study you just mentioned, T-John, read the second sentence.
I did read the second sentence. So
What does it say?
It changed
In most
that
recent
women-
years, this pattern has changed, so women are now more likely than men to support socialist bloc.
which doesn't challenge the point, which was
What
his
a
claim.
shock! Yes,
So
it does, because
No, it
this is part of the indoctrination principles that I often
The
talk about.
indoctrination.
Yeah.
So why did women not vote socialist for that 30-year period? What is it? Magic? Did they just stop
They
being
were still
women?
tradition. They were still traditional.
Yeah, they
Still
were still
traditional?
focused. They were still focusing on a different paradigm.
They didn't get
There's a
credit
new-
cards.
There's a new paradigm which is introduced, and if
In-
you think
in
that
1980?
do you think that public schooling and college does not do indoctrination? Like, be honest. Do you think that politically these are not indoctrination centers for a lot of people?
Well,
That
you
when
could
they go through college, they have a completely different outlook often. And
Yeah,
the
but
same
that-
thing even in high school.
wait, you call
Colleges
it
existed back
indoctrination.
then in the 1950s. So
You can call it indoctrination, and other people call it education. I mean, it depends on how it's your own preference on what you want to describe this.
although I think he's specifically mentioning that beyond the education, there is a political climate that influences the way you vote later. And yes,
true.
that's true. But colleges existed in that time period too, so it doesn't actually address the point.
Yeah, but colleges were not completely and totally taken over by the social left, and the social left has taken over almost all political and college institutions in the West. And they do this via indoctrination. Feminism does the exact same thing. Feminism uses what's called, and T-Jump, you're actually going to hate this.
So
You
just
may
to
not
clarify,
know what
just to
hang on,
clarify.
I'm almost done, then I'll
Right.
let you talk. Have you ever heard of something called standpoint theory?
I've heard of it. I used to. That was a part of critical race theory, wasn't it?
No, well, this is well, kind of, but
Precedent.
what standpoint theory says is that if we go back through history, we can't actually tell people the truth about women's suffrage and things like this, because history should be told from the perspective of women. It shouldn't be told from the perspective of the whole. Like, it doesn't matter what events actually happened. The motivations for them need to be explained and expressed only through the prism of women. This is part of feminist theory studies, and it's called standpoint feminism.
Well, it's
You can
called-
find
it's
references
not
to
quite-
almost every single one of the advocates of standpoint theory, which is now currently what is taught inside of most higher education. You can find the references to this in a book called Occult Feminism. It's quite good.
Well, you got some of that right, but standpoint theory, also called standpoint epistemology, which is what I know it as, is one of the 3 pillars of critical.
You never
race
even
theory.
fucking heard of it till 5 seconds ago,
I've
and
literally
you just
mentioned
Googled it. You fucking lying piece of shit.
I just Googled it.
You
because-
literally just Googled it. You don't even know what you're talking. It's just,
So-
I confess I did.
No. So
God, dude.
stop. So I've never heard it called standpoint theory. That's why I Googled it. And when you asked the question, I literally said, does this have to do with critical race theory? Critical race theory is built on 3 pillars, one of which is standpoint epistemology. So when I Googled standpoint theory, and the very first sentence is standard point theory or standpoint epistemology, then yes, now I know. Yes, I have heard of it. I'm very familiar with it because it's standpoint epistemology. Standpoint epistemology, which I disagree with. I think it's a stupid epistemology, but it says that you should evaluate.
well, hang on. Standpoint theory is different than standpoint epistemology.
Standpoint theory or standpoint
Yeah,
epistemology
feminist
is a theory for
standpoint theory
analyzing.
itself, as it was advocated, especially originally, and how it's been inducted now, slightly different than what you would consider this, the theory for critical race theory. So standpoint epistemology is a little bit different.
So
It is. There really is a delineation. Don't hold your head like a douche.
that
Just
it,
talk,
this,
man.
It was stupid.
Talk.
It was stupid. So critical race theory
Don't
is
do the
built
fucking
on
destiny shit. Come on.
is built on 3 pillars, 3 pillars of epistemology. So critical race theory and standpoint epistemology are not the same thing. They are. It is one of the
Okay, I'll tell you
pillars
what. I'll make a
critical race
deal.
theory.
I'll send you $100 right now if you close your eyes, you hold up your hands, and you tell me a fucking thing about standpoint epistemology.
Standpoint
Wait, hang
epistemology.
on. Let me finish. Just tell me the year.
I don't know. I don't care about the
Yeah,
year.
you don't fucking know.
Why
You
would
don't
I-
know shit
why
about it. You
would
just
knowing
made it
the
up as
year-
you went.
why would
You
knowing
just
the year
made
be
it
relevant?
up
No.
as you went.
The fact that you think the year is relevant to the epistemology.
You don't
means
know
you're a
anything
dumbass.
about this, bro.
I
You just
literally
Googled
do.
it. You're
Shut-
reading
shut-
off
shut-
of a Google machine.
Hold on, let's
literally
get this
spoken
back.
about
Let's
this.
back to,
I've literally
Let's
spoken
get
about this
this
on
back.
multiple occasions in the past. You can Google standpoint epistemology in my discourse. Yes, I do know a lot about this. Standpoint epistemology
Except
is
the year
relative-
when it was more. Hey, who's the guy
year
who
isn't relative
orchestrated it?
to the
Hold on,
epistemology?
what's the
You're an
guy's
idiot.
name who
Shush,
orchestrated
shush,
it?
shush.
You don't know. You don't
Standpoint-
know anything
Stop
about
interrupting.
it.
Stop interrupting. The standpoint epistemology is a model that says that you should put a lens of the people who wrote the story on a historical event. And so you need to take into consideration the other demographics, the non-white people or whatever, and then take their stories as more accurate depictions of the events than those of the whites or the leaders or whatever. And that's the point of standpoint epistemology, where it weighs the testimony of the individual relative to their social standing or their minority view, and then says that those who are in a lesser minority view get a higher.
So it's the same as
weighted
critical theory
view.
then.
Well, it's one of the pillars of critical race theory.
it's
one
like
of the
it's
three
like the
pillars.
foundation. Yeah. It's like everything came from that position. But back to, patriarchy, egalitarianism, which is the thing that is
You
really
can have fun with
unworkable.
it, T-Jump. It's all right. We're just playing around, man.
I think what people are arguing now, even conservatives, by the way, who we battle with on our side, argue from this very egalitarian, classical liberal position of equalness and individuality and individualism and all this stuff, and it's pretty rampant, the whole thing. So the whole you get these conservatives like Tapussa people that you went and visited Pine Creek arguing, making arguments against feminists, saying the patriarchy is bad. And then at the same time, they defend a classical liberal approach to politics. It makes no sense to us. It's contradictory. It's self-refuting.
So, okay, Jimbob and Andrew, would you predict, let's say I became dictator of the United States and I made it illegal for women to vote, would you predict 50, 100 years from now that our country would be more prosperous, less crime, just
10 years.
all around better?
I would
10
predict
years?
10 years. Yeah.
If
you limit suffrage generally, I would say so. I mean, I wouldn't say that suffrage itself has particularly helped the United States in any of its progress, to be honest with you. And that's for men and women both. I don't think that most men should probably be able to vote either. And that limiting suffrage, generally speaking, and here's why. Like, I know T-Jump kind of scoffs here, right? Maybe most people scoff as they hear this, but just think it through. Most people you talk to don't even know who the vice president is.
Oh,
They don't know.
I agree with you. Most people should not vote. The part I was scoffing at was the part where you said women's suffrage would decrease crime or whatever, when literally all the data in every country.
No, we weren't talking about crime. He was asking about prosperity. He was saying, would it be more prosperous, do you think, if they didn't? And I do think, generally speaking, it probably would be. And the reason is because I think that men tend to be more in line with risk taking. And if you're going to do, like a cross benefit analysis, you would say that in business, as you hold 3 different businesses, you have to take risk. And women generally don't like to take risks. They don't like it. They don't enjoy it. It's not part of this system that they kind of ascribe to. Risk is a thing which they try to kind of move away from them as much as possible for security purposes. This is why there's often bad mate selection. There's a lot of things that go into this, which are kind of interesting as you dig into it. But I also think that just that alone wouldn't solve the problem. I think you'd kind of have to limit suffrage across the board, to be honest.
What about things like poverty, though? Like the social aspects, helping the poor. Do you think that would be better? Like be less poor? I guess prosperous means less poor, but what about like women tend to be more nurturing than men? Would we lose something?
Yeah, as we look at this, it's interesting because we're often kind of moving our own goalposts here, and we look at like things like poverty level and this type of thing. And when I look at the poverty level, I kind of realize that there's not that many. I mean, there's enough, I guess, but there's not that many people who are under what we consider the poverty level now to be. The United States is this massively rich nation that was mostly untapped by European settlers forever. So, I mean, most of the resources here are still pretty raw and new, surprisingly. Most of the United States isn't even inhabited. Most of it is not inhabited because people tend to inhabit near water, right? Water sources, things like this. We're very, very, very rich. I feel like we've kind of squandered that in many ways. And when you're talking about allocation of resources and things like this, kind of the underclass, which will always exist, if you ask one of these people and you start to get into a conversation with them, most of the time, why are you in the situation you're in? What happened here, this and that? I've just noticed this, and it's purely anecdotal, but I've just noticed that most people seem to be in exactly the position you would expect them to be in based on the choices that they make. And this is the thing, is this is one of the reasons why if you kind of discuss with people who are in massive poverty, things like this, and you say, well, do you think maybe it wasn't a great idea to spend all of your money on crack cocaine for 2 years of your life, right? They go, well, yeah, that probably had something to do with it. And so, I kind of wonder at these issues, these kind of mass political issues, Doug, but I don't even think you would disagree with me here. Don't you think most people, if you talk to them and you kind of look at what their life choices are, they seem to have a symmetry.
Oh yeah, I'm a personal responsibility type guy. Like I love to ask the question, like with minorities, it can be very sensitive for a lot of people, but I like to ask the question, can a minority, let's say a young black man in the United States, make personal choices that affect his current outcome in life today? And it's really hard for someone on the left to say, well, of course, like, if they make stupid mistake. Yeah.
Because of this idea, but this is part of that indoctrination ideology, right? Where you just kind of shift the goalpost away and say, it's always external factors. It's just external factors. It's external factors.
Systemic racism.
And it just drives me crazy because when I talk to them, I hear a totally different story. Now, is that proof of anything? Ultimately, it's not. But man, I think it's a lot more proof than T-Jump has for his moral system. Right?
Well, let me ask T-Jump and Neil here. If we ran that experiment, 10 years, women not voting, and it turned out that on every metric that you guys agree on, the United States is more prosperous, better living conditions for everyone, would you continue on and say, okay, we ran the experiment?
Well, if what you say is true and all the metrics are checked out, then yeah. I doubt that would actually happen, though.
And how about you, T-Jump?
Oh yeah, so if I'm for whatever works best. So if it works best, I'd be for it. But we know.
Okay, now I want to ask Jimbob and Andrew the same question, but reversed. If we ran the experiment where men couldn't vote for 10 years, and it turned out our country was more prosperous, would you say, okay, maybe men shouldn't never vote?
Sure. The problem with this, though, is that I believe that this is a logical impossibility.
Logical, you say?
There's a logical impossibility.
Yeah, I think for you to pose the question, that we're basically redefining what prosperous would mean for a woman versus a man. So it kind of, it assumes a bunch. So I have the same answer as Andrew, and I might actually say no. I might actually just say no, because it's not going to sustain, and that's another aspect of this against the patriarchy argument. I always go into these panels and I ask these women a trick question. I say, with enough manpower and force, could you think we can take down the patriarchy? They don't even register what I'm asking. It's a trick.
I want to let everybody on this panel know I made T-Jump laugh. I did. He laughed. I saw it. It's possible. I can do this.
It's true. It's possible. Tagawa says $5. Thank you for that super chat. Women are susceptible to propaganda and indoctrination. Yes, manipulation as well. The 19th was a globalist wet dream. I tend to agree. I don't think, we already went through all that. Thanks for the super chat. $10. Not a debate, quote. Let us get the slow build up to fireworks by just not starting as a fight. Fantastic content, Jimbob. Thank you so much, and thanks for.
Well, actually, thank the guests. Thank the guests.
Yeah.
They're the ones who are assisting with that. I'm glad that T-Jump came back in. It's actually been quite productive and fun. And Neil, of course, thank you for being here. Doug's a piece of shit. I hate his guts, but I'm glad that he's here as well. It's awful nice of you. I saw that you combed your head for us this evening.
Nice.
Combed your head? Oh, man, that's brutal. That's brutal. Wow.
Satan,
you got nothing. You got nothing, bro. No, just take the L, Doug. Just take the L.
I'm happy to, because I know who I am. I have my identity.
So, Doug, can you tell us about your experience? Did you like in real life stuff better? You seem to be more vital and full of spirit, not as dead inside when you're in front of people physically at events.
Really?
Yeah, you didn't seem as dead. Yeah.
No, I actually think. I apologize for my dog. There was a Democrat at the door.
Well, okay. Doug, can I send you a super chat right now? Will you get the dog a steak?
Maybe. But
Okay.
I actually think I'm the same person online as I am in real life. I tend to joke around a lot. I think Andrew and I have very similar personality types. And I don't, like, I'm the type of guy, someone can say something that I severely disagree with, and I'm not going to be triggered. Like, I would never be like Matt Dillahunty. It's just not in my DNA. So it's really hard to trigger me, as evidenced by Andrew trying.
Did speaking of that, Dillahunty,
Doug, okay, that's cope because you couldn't figure out a great comeback. I know you were thinking about it. That joke.
Did anyone?
20 minutes, Doug. That's the best I had.
Doug, did any of your atheist friends actually confront Andrew's argument that he brought against Dillahunty, or is everyone just still running from it?
What's the argument?
Go ahead, Andrew.
Also, the argument just says this: if I were to grant the worldview that a lot of secular humanists postulate that Christianity is a big lie, it sucks, it's all completely based on untruth. If I just kind of grant that that's true, but then say, but the societal effects of it, of people believing in it, seem to be better than the societal effects of people believing in a purely agnostic or atheistic worldview. Would you, as the secular humanist, say that that is the pinnacle of humanism then? Wouldn't that be the best thing for humanity if it had the best outcomes for humanity?
Sure.
And then from there, we can kind of, yeah, right, exactly. So then from there, we can kind of critique and see if it does or it doesn't. And I would contend that it does. It does, generally speaking, have better outcomes for at least at the individual level, and then even scaled up to most of the societal level as well.
See, but if I was Matt Dillahunty, I would have mentioned the Enlightenment, and maybe that's true now, but wasn't true before, and you know, all the deaths and killings because of religion. But sorry,
come on. But what about communism, Doug?
Yeah,
what would you say about communism?
Well, I would say if I was Dillahunty, I would say because you could still be a Christian and still join a church within secular humanism, so that problem is solved. You can still
you kind of have a problem with that, though, Neil. And this is like
It's
you're
actually pretty
right.
funny.
You can make a counter argument, and Matt kind of did in his opening. He says, inside of the kind of secular humanist or atheist society, you can be a Christian. That's fine, as long as you have no power. And that's
Right.
where it's not so fine from my angle. Now, he didn't specifically state no power, but it was definitely inferred. So the question becomes then, well, who's better off in power? Who's better off for prescribing kind of moral prescriptions for the population that helps them thrive? If I look at Western nations that have a hard time even reproducing due to materialism, not so sure. The theists seem to be just overtaking them even inside of the secular countries or the more secular countries. They overtake them in birth rates, and they're going to continue to do so. In fact, I just read just this morning, Doug, it was on the Amish. You know that the Amish are doubling in their birth rates every couple of years. They're doubling.
wow.
Doubling.
Doug grew up Amish.
They
No,
don't.
Mennonite.
Notice how they can do that.
Really? Oh, well, okay. So hang on. Let me ask you this real quick before we dive into that. Why is it that Mennonites are okay with such subpar food? Like, I get that you have to. It's terrible, man.
Oh man.
I knew I could trigger him. I knew I could get him.
I think it's an
We're
indulgence. to
done
them,
with you,
right?
Doug.
It's probably an ethical. Is that ethics, Pine Creek? You don't overindulge in nice tasting stuff, or
All right. Okay. Hang on. Doug.
Pierogies,
I'm gonna
farmer
be completely-
sausage,
Pierogies are good.
borscht.
I'm going to be completely honest with you. So we had there was this terrible calamity that happened to us that was it made the news once, and this nice lady, she sent in this whole package for me and my wife to like get away for a couple of days. I'm not going to get into all the details, but it was like a Mennonite retreat. And it was a hotel that was run by Mennonites. Okay. No, I'm not kidding. Okay. You can look this up in Michigan. It's called the Shack. Okay. Now, maybe it's not run by Mennonites, but there's tons of Mennonites who go in there. So we go into this place. It's like
Was
4
it a Mennonite brothel?
It's like 4 o'clock in the evening. Well, maybe, right? It's like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, right? And I have a cigarette in the parking lot, and they're all looking at me like I'm Satan incarnate because I'm smoking in the parking lot. But anyway, we go in. We're gonna sit down for dinner. Doug, they had cubed meat.
Oh,
It was cubed meat. Doug.
Andrew, I can explain this.
All
Was
right.
it a Sunday?
No, it was a Saturday.
Saturday. Okay, same thing.
Same thing.
What you experienced was a Mennonite FOSPA. It's called a FOSPA. It's not meant to be like a real meal, but more of not a snack, but somewhere in between.
hors
And
d'oeuvre.
it's very common in Mennonite circles. If there's Mennonites listening right now, they'll know exactly what I'm talking about. So you experienced not a real meal, but a FOSPA.
These guys were sitting there and they were just like stuffing their face with the most horrific food I'd ever seen in my life. I remember looking at them and thinking to myself, how in the world can you eat this garbage, right? The first thing, now, of course, I'm wrong, because the first thing I want to do is get out of there and go to a Taco Bell, right? And I'm sitting there talking shit about the garbage they're eating. But I did. I wanted to get out of there and go to a Taco Bell or McDonald's or anything other than whatever the cubed meat shit was these guys are eating.
Do you recycle these stories? Because didn't you tell a similar story about the day you debated Matt Dillante?
No.
You had rotten food, remember?
Oh, no. That
Subway.
was Subway.
Subway,
that was
Subway
Which
versus
is a much
steak.
bigger
Yeah.
story.
No,
way
that
bigger.
but that happened too, right? I mean, he did. James pulled up the shirt. Let me ask you, T-Jump, you've done some of the in-live things for MDD. Has James ever treated you to Subway?
No, but I wouldn't want him to. I don't like Subway.
That's the thing, right? It's like,
Okay, I got to ask this.
I
Andrew.
was about to flex on that, but then it turns out he offered and you just said no.
I got to ask this because the people really want to know.
right.
Was part of your goal? Was it your main goal to trigger Matt?
Not
that
at all.
day? No.
I was actually absolutely stunned that he had quit out. I did deliver my opening statements with some flair, but I always think that that's really important to get people to pay attention. In fact, I remember T-Jump was on the Crucible channel. He was doing a debate, and we were talking with him, and T-Jump said, he's like, I realized that some of the flair, like when he says you're a dumbass or you're, you idiot or things like that, part of that is attention grabbing, keeps people focused. So I get all of that. But there is something to be said for like when you're delivering an opening statement, that you have good rhetoric and good flair so that people really pay attention to what it is that you're saying. I didn't feel like the argument was very over the top at all, and it was kind of just a counter. He brought up the LGBTQ stuff. I did the exact same thing back. I had multiple opening statements depending on what he said, and I went with the one that I thought matched
It's still
the
not an
arguments the
excuse.
best.
It's not an excuse anyway. I mean, even if he was triggered, or even if Andrew meant that, let's just imagine he did, right? And someone doesn't believe Andrew. It doesn't matter because the argument itself was not engaged with at all. And
Yeah,
that was
but
clear.
Doug, if I wanted to trigger Matt, oh boy, you know I could. But that was not the that was just not the goal.
And did you get a lot of pushback from your fellow Christians, whether Orthodox or non, for that?
I got some for people who were, but here's the thing. There's a whole sissification which has happened with Christianity, where there's a huge swath, mostly women, by the way, Doug, mostly women, who think that Christianity means be nice. And that's not what it means. It doesn't mean be nice. But they conflate morality with niceness. And that's insanity to me. But there are people who do that. But for the most part, no. For the most part, what I got were messages that said, it's about time the guy got a taste of his own medicine. But I didn't even feel like I was over the top. Like, I've done debates where I've delivered opening statements which were so brutal that I could see people going, dude, that was too much. And I would say, okay, you know, maybe that's a fair criticism. I didn't even think that was that bad. I thought he was just kind of being a bitch about the whole thing because he's humping a dude. You're humping, you know what I mean? That's what I think. I think that because he happened to be in a relationship where he's boning a dude, he was upset that part of the argument came up.
It's part of the argument too, by the way. Like when even you presented it to T-Jump here, Andrew, the consequence of the argument of accepting that you would actually favor Christianity if these outcomes were present actually means that you would abandon truth in favor of outcomes that you prefer. And so if the secular humanist position is that you'd favor outcomes and abandon truth, then you can't really be a secular humanist if you at least follow that argument. You can't be a secular humanist that says, I reject Christianity because it's not true, or I'm out to get the truth. Suddenly we have an argument where you actually do abandon the truth altogether.
Well, for humanism, the
becomes
goal is to maximize human well-being. And so if sacrificing truth would maximize well-being, you could be a humanist and reject truth.
But then wouldn't that, if you were sacrificing truth, what if you didn't have the truth of what well-being was, right? So it's kind of like it cancels itself out a little bit.
Well, if you don't have truth to determine anything, then it would just cancel out everything.
Yeah.
So, but that's the
Yeah,
point
that's
is,
atheism.
can you know what the truth is and know that you're going against the truth, but it achieves some goal of maximal well-being and still be consistent? Yes, you can know that something is false, but do it anyway because it's better for well-being.
Well,
Like
I'm not gonna
Jimbob,
get
that
in-
was a low blow. Like whether you're Christian or atheist or Muslim, we all struggle to figure out at times what truth is, right?
Yeah, but we're honest about it. Like the
Oh,
thing
I'm
is,
honest about it.
well, I think you are, but I don't think that and I guess you could apply that criticism back towards me. That's an Andrew L for those of you in chat. You can give me the L on that because it is true. We can apply that back towards me. So I think it is fair to say that kind of across the board, people do struggle with that. That's fair. You know what I mean? I've struggled with it. You have to trying to figure out what is true, what is not true, what's our path, what's not our path. But I mean, ultimately, what do you ride on, man? Like, you don't have anything other than, well, this is Doug's brain. Like, I wonder about you, Doug. I wonder if the airplane goes down, you're on the island. You know what I mean? Does Doug go, look, God, I don't know if you're up there. I don't know if you are, but I just built this raft and I don't know shit about carpentry. And I'm really hoping against hope that these coconuts that I put on this thing and this sail that I made out of, like, you know, weeds and shit that I found on this island gets me out of here. And if it does, I will be faithful for the rest of my. I do wonder, Doug, is that true?
Well, I do have markers that would change my mind that's similar to that, but I think it's a little better. Like if you and Jimbob were to take me to the graveside where my sister is buried, that I know she's dead, and you pray in the name of Jesus that she rises from the dead and she bubbles up through the soil. Naturalism, is out. I'm done.
I think his question was more like a atheist foxhole question. If you're gonna die, do you put your faith in God?
Well, I do. He's right. I mean, that is essentially what I'm saying is like, I kind of don't believe you. Like, I think if we're on an island, the plane goes down and I'm like, Doug, join me in a prayer. What could it hurt? I think you'd be on your knees and you'd be like, God, if you are there, please bless this raft so we can get off this godforsaken island where this asshole argues with me all day long, right?
It's better to take the raft and go to some shallow water and test it out where you know you're not going to die and see if the raft works.
Yeah, but we did all that. But we just don't have that much faith in our carpentry skills, let's say, or whatever it is. You know.
But that's easy, Andrew, to say incantations in the hope that it might be true. But still, deep down, I wouldn't believe it's true unless.
Yeah, but here's the distinction: if I'm on the island with a Satanist, right? I would never say his prayer, regardless of privation.
What if Satan could save you?
That's the thing. That's the entire difference. Is even if Satan could save me, I would sit there in privation and die. And so I wonder if then the alternative for the atheist world.
This is getting interesting.
You see what I'm saying?
But you always hear people saying, I sold my soul to the devil and I got rich and it worked. It only works you only hear it working for Satan. Then you hardly ever hear people saying, I prayed to God and he gave me this. Like, it's always.
What do you mean? That's the entirety of prosperity gospel.
Joel,
I mean, it's rampant. It's rampant.
Yeah, and it's awful, by the way. It's awful.
Actually, Pine Creek, your example is actually interesting because it's similar to Andrew's question about like life or death, is that your threshold of believing in God is specifically around a loved one and specifically around a certain event being possible about a loved one, right? But would that be the only thing, or could there be other things that aren't as drastic?
Well, I don't know about that, but there's other things like the famous pray in the name of Jesus that an amputee gets his limb back. But I have one that I use often on my live stream. Andrew, have you seen it? So this is water.
If I told you,
this stupid water thing.
Hey, you gonna put the lighter under your fucking arm again? Are you gonna do the lighter thing and burn your arm again?
So this is Kleenex in 1 Kings 18. Joshua prayed to the gods or his Yahweh, and so if you guys pray in the name of Jesus right now and this lights up, you know.
How could that prove if it's fundamentally against the Christian?
I don't need
view?
proof.
You're taunting God.
I don't need proof. What do you need?
Like, you're basically saying if I
Genie,
taunt
my
God,
confidence raised.
Wait a minute.
Okay. Let me raise your confidence. Hang on. Maybe I can help you with that, Doug.
Okay.
Right? The reason you should join what you consider the dark side of the Force to be, the reason you should surrender yourself to the red lightsaber and the Darth helmet is because ultimately all of the things that you fundamentally believe and want to see changed in the world, we're the only ones who are defending that and pushing back against it.
No, there's a lot of atheists like me.
No, there's not. In fact, Doug, I'm gonna give you a statistic that you're not gonna want to hear. But why don't you look up the voting trends of atheists in the United States? You know how many of them vote for the left?
Yeah, it's 66% or something.
Nope.
69.
It's higher. It's almost 80%. 80%.
Women?
Well, no, it's not. It's a combination thereof. But I know what you're referencing. You're referencing the polls that are done by Pew Research. There's varying data on this, but it's overwhelming what atheists will vote for. They're not voting in the interest of your right-wing ideology. Really,
well, no, I agree.
The only pushback's really coming from us. That's
you know why my channel's smaller than yours, Andrew? It's because
I'm hilarious and talented, and you're balding and old.
You don't even,
but I purposely offend a big chunk of my atheist base.
That's true.
Like I'm Neil, like you probably have kind of winced at things I've said, right?
A little bit,
yeah. Yeah, maybe even T-Jump. But T-Jump is probably more right than you think, Andrew.
He is more right than most. Yeah,
I've heard some of T-Jump's debates on trans issues, especially. I found compelling and interesting. I've never disliked T-Jump. Just like sometimes T-Jump, and this is a problem. You know this. You've been in the debate field for a long, long time. You've made a career out of it. Sometimes it's hard to turn it off, right? Sometimes it is. Sometimes hard to turn off I'm always going to be engaged in a blood sport debate. I'm always going to be, you know what I mean? It's hard to shut off sometimes.
Well, no, for me, I have a very hard criterion. It's like, as long as you don't interrupt, let me finish my points and don't make me repeat myself. Those are the only three that cause me to do that.
What's that?
Wait, what'd you say?
What'd you say?
We couldn't help it, bro.
Yeah.
We're just joking.
Doug, when you said there's a lot of people like me, right? Are you saying there's a lot of atheists
You're
that
an atheist?
actually take a practical Christian position that are partial to Christianity in a practical sense? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, in a functional sense that would lean towards the right, maybe not as far right as me, but and when I say a lot, I recognize it's like maybe.
Well, of libertarians too, you'd have to include. I think
Yeah.
most libertarians are sort of like this hedonistic, they want to do what they want. They don't really, in my experience so far, I don't know the data, but it seems that they're mostly sort of either fully atheist or agnostic. They really just value liberty above. Liberty is their God, basically. So they're kind of lumped in with you as well, I think, that they lean more right generally than left, even though they're free. They're all about liberty. They're all about complete liberalism.
I think if you're going to be an atheist and vote right, you basically have to be older, financially independent. Because if I remember being young and career, what am I going to do? Money, wife, all these big decisions, and having to pray to God for help. And if you're an atheist and you're young and you're dependent,
Small business owner.
yeah, who do you pray to? Like, and so the natural proclivity is to, I need the government as a backstop because God's not there anymore. I don't believe in him. So it's only natural for.
Well, not just that. A lot of people who are atheists on the left are voting against the religious Christian right, paleo-conservative worldview. It's not that they're voting for something; they're voting against that.
Oh yeah, that could be true.
Doug, do you think there's an actual separation of church and state, or is it impossible?
I wouldn't say it's impossible, but it's very difficult to have a complete separation because people's own worldviews is going to spill over in their political decisions all the time.
Sure.
Right. Yeah. It's like, how could you possibly become, let's say, based on your own views and practices that you've actually gathered your constituents and they help you along and you start winning and you get big, right? And then suddenly you have this place in politics. Is the secular humanist expecting the person to suddenly abandon their entire views that inform their decisions, right? If they're in top level government, why would that ever be the case? It doesn't even make sense.
And I think Andrew Yang is the only atheist that's in the Senate or the Congress. So they're all either Christian or Jewish or some sort of Christian. Yeah, I think there's only one, to my knowledge.
I didn't know that.
I think he's
That
the
actually
only one.
that surprises me. Actually.
But what Jimbob's talking about is people like Mike Johnson, the new Speaker of the House, right? He's a young Earth creationist, and I've been asked about this. Like, Doug, how can you vote right when the
He's fucking awesome. He's
Because
come on, Doug. He's
because the-
awesome, and you know it, right?
He's a smart guy.
He's awesome. He's
It's
great.
because the outcomes justify you abandoning a falsity.
Was Andrew
Or
Yang
a
in
truth.
Congress?
What's that?
Ignoring a falsity.
Was Andrew Yang actually a congressman ever?
That's actually a good question.
I don't know. What is he in?
I don't think he was, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, the
He's a
presidential
Chinese spy.
candidate.
Yeah, he was a presidential candidate. He ran on a libertarian ticket.
If I'm wrong, then maybe he's not.
Separation of church and state, B.S. Lewis says, should be akin to the separation of church and state. I don't even believe that's possible because to pursue science, you make a meta-ethical position about why we ought to pursue science. So you can't escape this ethics problem where we're constantly asserting our oughts about where we're going. Like we got to move forward. We got to progress. We got to evolve past these silly myths, right? It's an ethical stance. There's no way of escaping it.
Hey,
It's
Jimbob, Rachel had a few questions. She wanted to pop on. Is that okay if she hops on the
Sure.
panel too?
Sure, you got the link for her.
Is this your
I'm
wife?
not going to put it in my chat.
Yeah, that's
I'm
my
not gonna put it in my
wife.
chat.
Oh, she probably wants to talk
Be
to
fucking
me.
nice. Be nice, Doug.
Blue Skittle
Be
Gang,
nice, Doug.
$9.99. Young Earth Gang.
And I'll be nice to your wife. You know, like
My wife is amazing.
But isn't that
that-
so is mine? Isn't that basic man code anyway? Isn't that the way that's?
Oh yeah.
I feel like it is.
I gotta be
Did you
honest,
get
I
her
think the whole
the
political
link,
conversation
Andrew?
is kind of silly. It's like what systems work best and produce the best health outcomes. And the Western nations with the low birth rates have far better quality of life than everywhere else. It's like, yeah, secular nations won the health equality standard. It's like,
What's health worth if you don't reproduce?
That doesn't even make any sense. Like you can live a perfectly
does
good
make
life
sense.
with
Yeah,
no
that makes
kids.
sense.
Like
It makes sense. What are you talking about? Of
no,
course
it
it makes
doesn't
sense.
make sense. Like you're saying that a human
Health
who
until
never
everyone
has,
dies?
if a human who has no children, do they still have a valuable life if they live? Yes.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Yeah, and we don't even dispute that.
Well, so
We're
that's
not
the
even
claim is that
saying
you can
that
have
you
an
can't
entire
have a-
society that has better life standards, but no kids. If
For
they
how
choose
long?
to not have any kids,
If that led,
it doesn't
let me
make a
ask you
difference.
this:
For
if
how
that
long?
led
Doesn't make a
to, what if that led? Let's say that from right this second for the next 100 years, everybody who was born had like the maximum in life. They had the best life that they could ever have, but then at the end of that 100 years, nobody else was born. Just due to if the factors which made that life top tier in human history led to the basically extinction of humanity, would we go for that?
Yeah, that
No.
would be far more moral than
Oh my
having a
God,
society.
that's so
Until
that's so
when?
fucking
Until
awful.
when?
Stop,
Dude,
stop,
it's
stop,
so
stop.
awful.
So like imagine
Stop
having
havingkids.org.
imagine having like a society where there was forced pregnancy and everyone was tortured to death. You could have a society that continues on for a lot longer. Would that society be better than one who just doesn't have kids, chooses not to have kids, and has a high quality of life?
But it goes extinct.
and then goes extinct.
Yeah. So a society who has high quality of life goes extinct versus one with forced labor and pregnancy, slavery.
Yeah, but
one's better?
let's say for a second, let's just say I grant this and I say, it would be better if we all went extinct rather than the forced slavery and the this and the that.
Sure.
What if we did a more nuanced approach instead and we said, what if your standard of living would just slightly decrease and your happiness would just slightly decrease and your outcomes would just slightly decrease, but the human race would continue to go on?
What would that have to do with the question? Because the question was,
Well,
He's
no,
just,
this is
he's just
it.
spreading,
I'm
he's spreading out the
asking-
time. He's
Yes,
spreading
I'm
out
just
the time.
asking you. Let's just assume for a second that I granted you're right. All the if we went to these two extremes, but what if we just went a little more granularly and we said, what if just the outcomes were slightly less better? They were just slightly less good, but the human race continues on. Versus, we could have the outcomes be slightly more better, but the human race is a dead end. Which one would you choose then?
I would let the individuals choose. So like,
Yeah, but let's say you were the master and you could choose.
I would choose to let them do what they wanted to do. So like, my view is that I don't care. The human race as a concept doesn't matter. What matters is the
All right.
individual consciousnesses and what their value of life is. And so if their individual selves can have a better life for sure and just end and die or whatever, versus causing all of them excess suffering to produce more humans, there's no value to that. There's no value to
What if it was just something as simple as brushing your teeth? Let's just say that brushing your teeth, if you told everybody they had to brush their teeth, it continued the humanity. But if they stopped, for some reason, they all felt happier if they didn't brush their teeth. Would you mandate that they brush their teeth so humanity didn't end?
No, again, I don't. There's
No.
no value to this continue humanity thing.
Doug,
There's what
Doug,
is why do you
Are they
keep
going to brush
obsessing?
their fucking teeth under Dictator Doug? Is Dictator Doug going to say, you got to do this?
Well, there's
or
an
else?
important question here. Why do you keep obsessing over this continuing humanity thing? Why is this important?
Well, so from my aspect, from the way that I view the world, I don't think that you can have any of this happiness or goals or anything like this if you don't have a humanity for which to achieve those things. And I do think ultimately that God had an edict, at least from my purview, that we do breed and we multiply, and he wanted us to do so for a reason. And I think that the reason is that life is not fair and it is suffering. And there is going to be one of the big problems kind of I see with the world. This is just my view so that you understand it, is that people have embraced materialism to the point where they will stop reproductive activities even in order to get what I want right now for the highest quality of life right now. And I don't think that that's a moral good. I don't think
I
that's
can
right.
see Andrew's point and I can see T Jump's
I
point.
wanted to, because I didn't hear an answer there. I heard that God told you so, but like, what is the value?
Why is God told you so not good enough?
Well, it was the thing you said before that it sounded like a good answer. The God told you so is just a terrible answer.
But T Jump, I got a great question for Andrew on that.
Sure.
If God said, Andrew, if God did
If God
Just-
told me to do whatever, if God told me to go through and exterminate everything that Pine Creek loved, the AK-47 is coming out.
Rachel,
I don't
you see
give
what
a
your
fuck.
husband's doing to me? I'm a nice guy. And he's
Well,
like,
Wouldn't it be going,
what if God told you to become
Andrew.
trans?
Andrew? What if we
It's
are
logical.
think though? Wouldn't that
Yeah,
mean
that would be.
well, let me finish my
from
question.
purview.
Andrew,
Go
if
ahead.
God actually destroyed the universe
Mhm.
tomorrow, but didn't tell anybody, and just poof, everything's gone, would that be bad?
Well, so the question that you're asking, if we look at the purviews of what's logically possible, Doug, you would have
Lean
to
yes,
agree.
lean no.
Stop. It would have to go. It would have to go through the paradigm of what is logically possible. I think people often mess up when we're talking about philosophy, especially, is that logical possibility has to come from a paradigm. From T-Jump's paradigm, that's logically possible. From your paradigm, it's logically possible. From my paradigm, it's not actually logically possible. The question becomes incoherent.
Is it logically possible to create the universe out of nothing?
It is with uncreated energy.
So then it should be logically possible to destroy the universe into nothing.
Well, no, because then that would be counter to the nature of the thing that I'm appealing to. And remember, in T-Jump's actual answer for his morality, T-Jump stated that a space field of morality, the object just simply can appeal to itself, which is exactly what I'm doing right now. Why am I wrong, Pine Creek Doug?
Well, see, I think the core fundamental difference is the value one places on existence in itself. And I think a lot
I can agree with.
Yeah, and I think a lot of atheists would say that existence is neither good or bad, it is what it is. And so if the universe went extinct tomorrow, that's not bad, that's not good, it just is what it is.
I'm going to answer to this. Before I do, can you just answer one thing for me? And I'm sorry, I know that that's actually kind of bad form, but if you just don't mind, because we're in an informal panel setting, you obviously place some weight on existence and the continuation of existence. Why the fuck do you do that, man?
Why do you think it's obvious I do?
Because you're a right-wing conservative fanatic. I've seen your content. You love reproduction. You think that children are excellent. You want to see more of that in society. Why, man? Why?
Well, because
you know that there's something there.
I'll answer your question. It's because I disagree with T-Jump that I think it would be a horrible way to go if a society would slowly go extinct.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to have a lot of old people, like just practically, who's going to change my diaper? I mean, it's going to be bad. And so
What's that answer now, though?
I'd rather a big
why is
rock
this
just
a
hit our
hypothetical?
planet and we just go poof, we're gone. I'd rather Yellowstone just blow up.
Well, before we introduce Rachel,
I can
thanks for
actually
being
kind
patient.
of
Here.
relate, I think, a bit with that answer. It's like there's almost maybe even T-Jump would agree. There's almost an intuition to it, right?
So the reason we need kids is to take care of you when you're old, so they can change your diapers.
That's true, though.
That's the
I mean,
reason.
that's
That's not really what
That's
he's saying. He's
practical.
just-
That's
kinda
exactly
saying-
that's literally what Doug just said.
Well,
No,
he
he's
gave
being
an
facetious.
example.
It's
That's
more than
true.
that.
I mean, that's true. But he gave an example. What he's really trying to say is he's like, look, I think intuitively we don't think that non-existence is good, or else T-Jump, why wouldn't you just go grab the 45 next to you and you know what I mean? It makes no
Some people
sense.
do.
You just
Also,
go off.
Andrew, also T-Jump, you also have in your view, I think you still have this, the best possible world, right? Isn't that paired to your moral paradigm?
Yes.
Okay, so is it possible to have a best possible world without a knower?
A knower? You mean a conscious entity? Like possibly?
Yeah, to value it.
But I would say
value
that a conscious entity who would like to continue living would be the best possible world. If a conscious entity does not want to
Right.
continue living, it would be better off suiciding or whatever. Doug's answer was the reason we should have kids was because of what would it look like if society started to go out over a long, prolonged period of time. We'd get old, it'd be suffering, unpleasant, but that would be contradictory to
Hang
the
on,
example.
I'm so sorry to cut in, T-Jump, and I'm going to let you get the floor again. But the patriarchy must speak for a second and tell its wife to bring down the charger. I'm sorry. Can you bring down my phone charger? I'd appreciate that. I'm so sorry. Go ahead,
And
T-Jump.
B.S. Lewis asked why women get voice on the panel because we value nepotism, so we play a little
You know
bit
what
of a
trouble I'm
balance
in,
game.
Pine Creek? Stop being smug. Stop being smug,
Go
Pine
ahead.
Creek.
Let
Stop
me-
judging me.
Let me ask
Go
you
ahead.
that. So if we were going extinct under the Christian worldview, wouldn't that mean we're getting closer to the second coming?
I'm not sure actually about that question.
Well, so what Doug said was that the reason he doesn't want us to stop having kids is because it would cause our old people to have lots of suffering. But that would be contradictory to the example, because the example is, would a society who had a full life of full happiness, including at the end, they have robots to change their diapers or whatever. There's none of this added suffering stuff that you require kids to take care of you. They had a full life of all happiness, essentially, and then just didn't have kids. Would that be better or worse than a society that was forced to reproduce or whatever? And so from my view, I don't care whether or not we reproduce. It's not important whether or not we reproduce. It has no value whatsoever. What matters is whether or not we want to reproduce, and if the children we do have, if they have meaningful lives. So obviously reproduction is better if we can produce more kids and they all have happy lives too. Sure. And so us going through a little bit of suffering, like brushing our teeth, in order to produce kids who will live lots of happy lives, sure, that I'm happy with. That's a good argument. But simply valuing existence or valuing reproduction rates over the quality of life of the people who are living now is kind of asinine.
But T-Jump, and we'll get to Rachel. Sorry, Rachel. If
No problem.
better or worse does require, like, the first and most fundamental thing is existence, even with force or even unpreferred methods, because without the people, you can't say it's better or worse, like Doug said. It would just be a void, right?
You
So
need
from your
consciousnesses to have
system,
better.
wouldn't it follow that you would actually you would violate and impose on people to maintain the best, because it does. It could be seen as worse in the short term, but you have to have that as a precondition to get to anything better anyway. So you need to say procreation is better in your system.
No. So in
Well,
my
why
system,
not?
if all conscious agents wanted to die and didn't want to procreate, that'd be perfectly fine. That would be the best of all possible worlds. Whether or not they continue is irrelevant. What matters is do all conscious agents have the freedom to do the things they consent to doing? So in the best of all possible worlds, there's no aging. You wouldn't die of old age. You could just continue living for as long as you wanted to. And so there wouldn't be, like, I don't imagine all conscious agents would suicide. But if they did,
But there
that'd
would be no
perfectly
new
fine.
life, right?
There probably still would be. Probably many people who would choose to reproduce. Yes. Just be slower.
Yeah, but I mean, you would hit a zenith if nobody ever died.
A what?
You would hit
Zenith
like
point.
a point where how could you possibly continue to reproduce if everybody died? If nobody died.
So in this world, we have infinite power, kind of like gods. We can just create as many worlds as we want. So there wouldn't be a
Oh, I see.
limitation.
Oh,
Okay.
that's how it works. Okay, Rachel,
Just like-
thank you so much
just
for
like
your
God.
patience. Welcome to the panel. You have the
Hello.
floor.
Well, I just heard somebody say patriarchy. So Doug said, have we talked about the patriarchy yet? And I heard you guys were talking about that and about standpoint theory and stuff. So
Doug,
did
you
guys-
brought this on yourself, bro. I'm tapping out. I'm tapping out.
Should be
Oh,
talking
come
about
on.
you.
I'm super nice and harmless and totally unscary. Sheesh. But did you guys ever sort that out, what we think about the patriarchy?
No,
is
I don't think we
Doug's-
did.
Doug supports it.
Doug
Right.
Well,
supports the
generally-
patriarchy?
I'm open to it. The way we left it is if we ran the experiment where, for example, women couldn't vote for 10 years and it led to better outcomes, I think all of us here would say, yeah, then we should do it.
Oh, but
Well,
you
I
asked the
think-
alternative, and they don't
And
think
then I
we
asked
got
the
a-
alternative as well.
I didn't think we get a clear answer from that. So if we ban
got my
men from
studies.
voting and society gets better, would Andrew and Bob and Rachel admit that the patriarchy was bad?
Well, I don't think that voting is like what determines whether we have a patriarchy. I think that's one very small part of it. I know that, like, to the broad world, they think that the 19th Amendment was like the thing that took down the patriarchy, but I wouldn't actually say that at all. So, I mean, like Andrew said, we could limit suffrage in lots of ways and we might have varying outcomes. I personally am not a democracy enjoyer. I don't think voting and representative republics are a very good system of government at all. So I don't know if I would focus mainly on just voting. I think there's a lot of other ways to determine, like, if we have a patriarchy. For example, all the feminists argued that even after they got the vote, we were still living under a patriarchy. And a lot of them think we still are living under a patriarchy. I wouldn't say that, but I mean, even if women can't vote or can vote, do you guys think there's we could still have a patriarchy regardless of that?
I think there's a natural hierarchy that men do certain things in the world and women do certain things in the world, and they fall into certain places in civilization, in society, and that's just how it is.
I also think that whatever outcome you came to with either of those two hypotheticals, whatever outcome you had and whatever system you had of society or of justice, governance, would still be upheld by force.
Yes.
And this is Andrew's, typical argument against all these people is that no matter what hypothetical you come to, if you take the methodology that gets you the hypothetical, let's say women rule the world, and you get to this outcome where all the outcomes are better and it's beautiful, that to protect that, you still then appeal to pure muscle in the end, right?
Any type of illusion of women's rights is going to be enforced and upheld by men regardless. Right. So if we have not a patriarchy, if we've got an egalitarian or a matriarchal system, it's only that way because men still decided to facilitate such a system. If that makes sense.
It's like LARPing. It's like
do you think it's bad for women to be in high places of power, like CEOs of big corporations, stuff like that?
Yeah, I do.
What do you think? What's your reasons for that?
Well, there's a lot of reasons for that. One is that women do tend to be a lot more emotionally driven and a lot less rational. And we're biologically programmed, and if you guys are naturalists, you'll actually agree with me on this point. We're programmed for maternity. There's a lot that went into getting women to be successful at reproduction and being moms, and you have a baby attached to you for at least 2 years after it's born. You're very vulnerable for the whole time you're pregnant, the whole time you have a newborn and toddlers. And so women tend to want to distribute everything evenly. We want to make everything fair. We want to make sure everyone survives.
Commie mommies. That's what you are.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. Whereas, so like this is the irony, right? Of all the libertarians say, we have to give women voting rights because that's freedom and we want maximum freedom and we want maximum liberty. But by giving women voting rights, you ensure that whatever freedom or liberty you had is going to go away, because women are always going to vote for a nanny state. They're going to always vote for protection over freedom. They're going to vote for security over liberty. They're going to be risk adverse. They're going to be conflict avoidant. And so you're going to get less liberty and less freedom if women are voting.
So let me modify my question for a little bit. Let's say that...
Look at him pretending to listen. You and Andrew are similar in behaviors. And
yeah, when women come on the panel, they shut
down. Look at him pretending.
So let's say that...
He's like, wow, she's so interesting.
Ironically, proof of oh shit, I just took everyone off. Ironically, proof of the patriarchy. Just Doug.
Way to go.
Sorry.
Why did you just ruin the whole fucking panel?
Sorry.
You know? This poor guy was just
one
over here
glass of
messing
wine.
with us.
Yeah. Okay, let me shift these around.
So let's say that women do vote for all of those things you mentioned, but society ends up for 10 years, and society ends up better off, longer health standards, better quality of life, lower poverty, et cetera, et cetera. Would you admit that the anti-patriarchy was good?
Well, no, because I'm not a utilitarian and I don't do things based on outcome. My moral view of the world is not based purely on outcome. For one, you can't ever just completely predict outcomes. There's too many variables to say, well, if women vote, I mean, you can pose the question if we could prove it, but I don't think
let's say it happened. Let's say we just let them vote and institute all those different things you said over a period of 50 years. And after 50 years, the quality of life in every country we did this was significantly better. And the quality of life in the countries that did not do this were not better.
It would depend on what you mean by quality of life, because I have a whole chapter in this book. The whole last chapter goes over the outcomes of the last 100 years of women voting and being
dead. Pure dead.
It's really bad. Like every metric of well-being that you guys as atheists and naturalists would point to.
Hang on. I'm sorry. Pine Creek fucking Doug. I will send you a signed copy of the book. I know you wanted to ask. I'll send you the signed copy of the book. Why don't you calm the fuck down, Doug? Anyway, back to this. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut.
I'm so happy I didn't have to ask.
So I have a book I like to reference as well. It's called The Better Angels of Our Natures by Steven Pinker. It does a pretty really good analysis of crime rates, lowering the crime rates, lowering of murder rates, increasing quality of life, happiness level, food, access to opportunities, freedoms. Pretty much every standard that most philosophers use when we're trying to establish anything in morality has improved drastically by increasing all of those things, like a welfare state, healthcare in countries that do socialized healthcare or a mixed economy healthcare, drastically beat out pretty much every privatized healthcare system in existence, with one exception, which is Singapore. Same with housing and assistance, and like the best government program.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, the best government program that's ever done anything for anybody was the EITC, the Earned Income Tax Credit, where the government essentially just doubled people's incomes in low poverty conditions, and it saved the lives of tens of thousands of children overnight. So if we look at the data, it shows that all those protectionist socialist policies benefit the lives of pretty much everybody significantly everywhere in the world,
but lead to lack of population. It's interesting you said Singapore. My wife is half Singaporean, and they have to do drastic measures to repopulate now.
Well, again, I don't care about that. Literally doesn't matter. Literally doesn't matter.
It is relevant, because what you call well-being, I think we've established, right, Tom, that your goal of well-being could just be a blip in time, and then it all fades away and it's fine. But from our view, if you were to achieve well-being, you would want to sustain it, and to sustain it, you need to have children.
But you guys
now,
agreed.
is it better to sustain well-being and outcomes than not?
Again, sustain, as I mentioned, sustaining means nothing. It literally doesn't matter if humanity continues. What matters is the quality of the life of the individual consciousnesses. And so,
do you need a day for that? Do you need a week for that?
I don't.
That doesn't make any sense.
So wait. So the point
the
here
time
is,
frame
as
doesn't
you
matter,
guys
but
mentioned,
you need time.
If we're comparing the two extremes, a world where everybody lives happy lives and never reproduces, or a world where people are forced to reproduce and be slaves, clearly the one where the world ends and there's no more children is a better option than the one where everyone's forced to be slaves and have children. The reproduction part just doesn't matter. So whether or not we have more kids isn't a measurement on the happiness scale. It's not a measurement on the well-being scale. There is no part.
Actually,
not based on
not
women.
to interject,
who have kids.
but I wanted to jump in just because that's actually not true. We have like major consequences from declining birth rates. One of which is we have a massive labor shortage right now. We have supply chain interruptions. We are now encouraging people to do assisted self-deletion because we don't have enough population growth to sustain people. It's causing massive problems in quality of life. It's causing massive problems in interruptions of the food system, the healthcare system, and it's only going to get worse. So that's one aspect. But the other thing is Pinker's stuff has been torn apart by a lot of people a lot smarter than me who say it's kind of bullshit. And what I would say in response to his data is that my data shows that if you look at things like mental health outcomes, substance abuse, homelessness, all the metrics you would look at for well-being for children, when they grow up in broken families, if they grow up in a disrupted family system of any kind, they are at far higher risk. So like all the children that they find in, inpatient mental health facilities, they did a big study where like 88% of these kids come from homes where there's some type of disruption. The dad's not there. The parents are divorced, remarried, things like that. The breakdown of the family unit has caused a lot of suffering, a lot of unwell-being for a lot of people.
There, because those aren't issues in most Western countries. They're just not. That's an American issue.
Yes, they are.
No,
what do you mean?
Not
what
really.
are issues?
The most countries have the well-being of the children is significantly better than everywhere else in the world. There is no comparison. Everywhere,
so
every standard of every Western
you're just saying
nation
material.
does better.
You're saying material conditions are better for kids.
Psychological
in
well-being, happiness. Every single criterion of the psychological state of well-being of kids is better in Western nations than anywhere else, in any time period, anywhere in history. This is not even contentious.
No, we don't have any measurements for the psychological well-being of children across time in different parts of the world. No, we don't. We don't have data for that.
Can you show me the data of the psychological conditions of somebody who was born in the year 1000 AD, sir?
The year 1000? We can actually, yes, because we can show
go ahead.
availability of food.
I'll wait. Yeah, I'll wait. You show me the psychological conditions.
This is well studied.
Go ahead.
What?
But what about China with low birth rates?
China? What about China?
There are people with psychology PhDs that are historians that have done work on this stuff. I've certainly read it.
It's all speculation.
This is a Republican trope where they say here's
data.
there is conclusive data. The consensus in every single academic field is exactly what
consensus is not.
Consensus
is not a conclusion.
Why do you guys not understand how science works? So the consensus is.
Oh, we don't know how science works. Close your eyes and tell me the scientific method. Just tell me the scientific method.
Hypothesis, prediction, conclusion. There you go. That's not even hard. So What you guys are
Wait.
saying is wrong.
No, that's wrong.
Close.
No, it's
That's close.
Almost.
It also depends on what you're talking about too.
no.
Okay,
That
close
is that
enough.
is
Let him
that is
go.
the,
Let
that
him-
is
let
the
him go.
scientific method. You guys, if you don't think you're wrong, if you think I'm wrong
Say
on
it
that,
again.
you know
Say it
nothing
again.
about science.
Wait, say it again.
Hypothesis,
Why are you guys so beating up
prediction,
on teaching?
conclusion.
Wait, do you need a observation before a hypothesis?
What? The
Yes.
observations
You need
and
an
the
I
observation.
need an
predictions.
observation
Yeah,
before
yeah, you do.
hypothesis.
Yeah, you skipped that
No,
Yeah.
no, I didn't skip that
Yes, you
part.
did.
That's a part of
Okay.
that's the part of the middle one.
I gotta
You
get
want
my
nail
chat
polish?
Okay,
GPT.
okay,
Yes,
go
I
on.
do.
Go on.
Yes, I
Let
do.
him go. Let him go.
Is that to go with the new lesbian hairdo?
Yes.
Very cute. I love it.
So
Oh, ruthless. Go
again,
ahead. Go
as I
ahead.
mentioned, the consensus in every academic field, the quality of life has been improving drastically everywhere, especially in Western nations over time. If you think the quality of life or the psychological well-being of a kid in the 1000 is better than a kid today, you're delusional. You just know nothing about the field. You know nothing about research in the field. So it is a fact that the
Wait, in the field of
well-being of
psychology?
every academic field, psychology, history, well-being, neurology, ethics,
Okay, so
every
you know
field,
that the field of psychology has a massive crisis when it comes to
which has nothing to
replication.
do with the topic, irrelevant. So yes,
Oh,
there is a
okay.
reproducibility
So the fact
of
that
modern
you can't reproduce any of the studies, the fact that there's a replication crisis that's the highest
has
in psychology
literally
has nothing to
nothing
do
to
with the
do-
study of psychology and the history of
has
psychology.
literally nothing to do with the fact that the well-being of children today is better than that of when they were starving to death and had the plague. Yes. So the fact that
That's
some
That's a
wait,
result
wait,
of
wait,
modern
wait,
technology.
wait,
That's not a
yes.
result of the breakdown of the family unit. You're the one who
The
doesn't know how
breakdown
to
of the
do
family unit
science.
has nothing to do with Western culture either, because it's not a thing in most Western cultures. Most Western cultures don't have a breakdown of the family unit.
Yes,
It's an
they
American
do.
issue. No, they don't. In
Yes,
fact, there's
they
many
do.
that have far more of a family unit than America,
Australia, the UK, France,
who all
United
have
States,
phenomenal
Canada, yes,
health
they
and
do.
wellness standards in every criterion. So again, nothing you've said has even come close to
You're
addressing the points I
conflating
brought up.
two issues.
No, there's one
I'll
issue.
let you finish
What
so
is
that
the
you can do your-
well-being of humans, both children and adults? And in every society, the Western nations who are doing all the socialist stuff about healthcare and providing people with extra money and giving people more rights, they're doing better by every metric. Anybody who disagrees is just delusional and knows nothing about the data. And the fact that you're bringing up certain cherry-picked examples doesn't change that. The fact is, guess what? Healthcare for today, well-being for today, for the psychological well-being of kids is better than it's ever been in human history. And that's a fact.
Okay, are you done now?
Sure, go ahead.
Can I reply?
Sure.
Okay. We can have advanced technology that gives people better healthcare systems, better food systems, better material conditions, and at the same time that we have those technological advances that help us with our material conditions, we can also not have feminism, which breaks down the family unit, causes massive amounts of divorce or children born out of wedlock, and causes all kinds of problems for kids growing up. If you think that growing up in broken homes is, not a problem for kids, then you're the one who doesn't know the
I
data.
don't think he believes that though, Rachel.
No, I agree.
Just
I agree.
a-
Broken homes are a problem, but that
Yeah.
doesn't
Yes.
invalidate. So the point here, healthcare, socialized healthcare, has saved hundreds of millions of lives. The
What does that have
benefit-
to do with feminism?
Who paid for it? The socialist programs, the socialist government, feminist programs of the things you said
Oh, I
women
see.
vote
You're
for.
saying we need feminism so we can have socialism to fix all the
No.
problems that feminism caused?
Literally
That's retarded.
none of that I said. So
See,
what I
first
said,
what you do
wait,
is
wait,
you get the
stop.
feminism and it causes all this social disruption and
No.
fucks everybody
Wait,
up.
wait,
But then it's good because we get the women to
No,
vote
listen,
for socialism,
saying-
and then you fix all the problems with the socialism.
Okay, let's go back to
Are you
what you
Wait,
said.
hold on a second. Are
Yeah,
you
You
saying
guys supposed to be smart?
you think
Are you
there's no such thing as
kidding me?
broken homes during the church like 1,000 years ago? There was no broken homes. I mean,
No.
broken homes has always been a thing.
No, not to the extent that it is now. Not even close. Have you seen the data?
Neil,
What do you mean?
did you have a broken home, Neil?
Neil Heel.
No, actually, I didn't.
Oh, okay. Well, then
Do you
it's
know
awesome.
how many kids were born out of wedlock in 1960 versus how many kids are born out of wedlock now?
Well, that's not the same as saying there wasn't broken homes before, and now there are broken homes.
Do you know how rare divorce was prior to 40
Sure.
years ago? Extremely rare. To say
Prior
there
to
hasn't been a
feminism.
massive epidemic increase in broken homes over the last 70 years since we've implemented feminism as the default is ridiculous. Everybody knows this. I mean, we can just take a look at the data. I have a piece on my Substack going over the last 45 years of national incidence studies, which looks at all of the data around, children and women's welfare and what situations and conditions cause the most abuse, harm, social problems, problems with well-being. And unequivocally, far and away, they say that for children to grow up in an intact home with both biological parents married is, by a factor of about 12, the safest way for children to grow up.
No, it's not. So you kind of ignored the factors of having food and not dying of the plague. Those are kind of important.
But you can have that without the feminism. Can you not?
No, you can't. So again, the reason I brought up all these socialized governments with all of their socialized
why
healthcare,
can't you?
Wait.
That's literally what I'm answering. That's literally what I'm answering. So, as you mentioned, women vote for things like protectionism and government's safety nets. Healthcare is one of these. Most of the Republican systems don't vote for these things. They're against all of these things. So all of the very advanced healthcare we see in all the Western nations, they're called socialized healthcare for a reason. Those are all those women things you keep voting for, these safety nets and the government oversight and stuff. And they work. They literally work objectively more than everything else.
If you had intact families and you just
wrong.
had the Industrial Revolution and advancement in technology is what created the increase in material well-being. It wasn't a fact that we broke down the family unit and then built it back up with socialism. That's just
I don't care about the family unit. The family unit is irrelevant. It doesn't even it pales in comparison to the deaths of hunger and disease. Family unit means nothing.
But I'm saying you can fix those things with technology and then also get rid of the feminism that causes all the social and psychological problems.
What do you know causes
companies?
Where are you getting this from? What's the methodology of deciding that this is what's causing that? And are you just looking for data to fit the narrative that you want? You just start with the narrative, and then is that your methodology? You just start with the narrative, and then cherry pick the data that you think fits the narrative the best.
You mean me?
Yeah.
Are you talking to me? No, this is like my specialty, like history subject that I've studied for years. And we can see that all those material increases in well-being started as a result of the Industrial Revolution and an increase in technology. Those are the things that brought better healthcare systems, better food systems, less starvation. It was not a result specifically and directly of socialist programs. If anything, the 20th century proves the opposite. When you have communism in the USSR, everybody starves to death. When you have communism,
economy, we're talking about a command economy with a whole different set of how they run their government. We're talking about a free market over here.
Well, what's a command economy, Neil?
When the government just controls everything. And there's no free market.
Okay.
I don't care about Russia. Who cares about Russia? Let's talk
about
that's
why I said
you're saying that socialism is responsible for the increase in material well-being, and I'm saying it's not. It's technology.
So again, then if that was the case, then the countries with the greatest technology would have the greatest wealth care. You know what is not the case? That is wrong. That is provably wrong. You have to be just completely delusional.
What countries have the best health care?
Yeah,
Norway,
great question. I was
Germany, Denmark, Sweden, Japan.
Okay, now hang on.
Those countries are massively technologically
Doug, what were you going to ask?
Germany?
Wait.
Germany was at the forefront of medical technology. They didn't get that from socialism.
You have to ask this question with T. Jump.
America is the most technologically advanced.
Doug,
America
you have a question?
does not have the best healthcare. The ones that have the best healthcare are the ones who implemented the socialist. I'm not pro-socialism. I hate socialism, but it's the socialist policies who do not have the best technology. They, as the Republicans complain about all the time, where's the innovation in all of their healthcare? It's all coming from America, blah, 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 blah. No, that level of innovation is irrelevant. What matters is the moderate level of innovation that is spread across the majority. Higher levels of innovation, higher levels of technology are irrelevant compared to the moderate level of technology that is spread across a mass majority of people.
So when you say best, your metrics are different than maybe Rachel's. When you say the best healthcare, you're taking into account the number of people can help, not necessarily the quality given to each person. Is that correct?
Well, I'm counting the psychological well-being of all the children, not just the rich white children.
Okay, yeah. So now let me ask you this. Money's no object. Which countries in the world have the best healthcare?
Money's no object. Oh,
yeah.
Any of them. If you have money, you can get any healthcare anywhere you want.
No,
which countries have
non sequitur? That's not even the question he asked. Come on, man.
Well, no. So if money's no object, you can fly any doctor from anywhere in the world to do anything you want.
But wait, you guys were losing track. His original argument was that you need feminism somehow to get this high quality health.
The correct answer is going to be United States, maybe Germany.
It's going to be Japan. Japan's going to beat you. But
yeah, but the United States is up there, right?
Yes, if you have infinite money.
So your problem is, your definition of best is when you factor in the money.
Yes, that's the reason. The
Yeah,
reason
okay.
I'm saying that the healthcare system, the socialized healthcare system, is better is because it improves the psychological state of the children, of all the children, not just the rich white children, of all the
So
children.
does having a father in the home.
That's true. I agree. I am agreement with you.
Right. So why can't we have this increase in technology that gives us better material conditions without the feminism that disrupts the social order and the family?
So
I don't understand what is your argument that we need the feminism to get the better healthcare outcomes?
sort of. So it's like the better healthcare outcomes happen if we keep the broken families, but add the better healthcare system of socialism. The health standards rise more.
Wait, you're advocating for broken families combined with better health care? Like, or you're just
So
saying if
just
that's
listen,
the case?
listen to the words first, and then
Okay.
so if we
All right,
keep,
fair
keep
enough,
the
fair
broken
enough.
families, we keep the broken families. Say this is an intrinsic part of feminism. You got to have
Okay.
broken families for feminism, but it also comes with the socialized healthcare. So you got to take both of them because they're both the feminist package or whatever. And then we have this is option A: broken families plus socialized medicine, or option B: America's non-broken religious something or another plus American healthcare. The number of lives saved and the quality of life improved will be better under the feminist system. Even with the broken families, that healthcare system is going to do hundreds of millions of lives more saved than the broken family garbage. We don't care about the broken family garbage. It's not a
Okay,
serious concern.
so are you saying then that
Hang
if
on, I haven't
men-
had supper yet.
men are
I'm
encouraged
just
and
going
we
to say
don't-
goodbye to everyone.
Oh, I knew he was
Oh.
out.
Yeah.
I
Say
am so
goodbye.
tired of you, Doug. You give
Thank
us
you,
10 more.
Jimbob.
Hang on, no, I
problem.
don't want to hear shit.
Thank you,
10 more
Andrew, for
minutes.
signing the book and
10
sending it to
more
me.
minutes. 10 more
I haven't
minutes.
eaten since 8 a.m.
10. You can do
It's now
10
8
minutes.
p.m.
Are you a diabetic, Doug?
No,
10 more minutes.
So you
10
have
more
no
minutes.
excuse.
I'm a fat old white man.
Doug, just do what I did.
Andrew is abusive.
Ten
Doug, it
minutes.
was great
Wait,
to see you
Doug.
tonight, man. You have a good night.
Doug, do what
Yes.
I did. Just bring
Good night.
your meal onto the TV and eat.
Well, you know, unlike you, T-Jump, I have a family I need to go to and eat with. Oh, that was
You have
so
a good
bad.
night,
I'm
bro.
sorry.
Oh, no.
Doug,
Doug,
I
that
got a
was
Okay,
broken
brutal.
T-Jump
family.
doesn't
Doug.
care about
Broken
families.
family.
That was
Sorry,
ridiculous.
that was rude. I
Doug,
shouldn't have
Doug,
that
do
way.
you still have two channels, one politics and one not, or not?
No, I combined them, so everything's
Okay.
on the Pine Creek channel. Yeah. So if people
Alrighty.
want to see me there, they can and get my viewership as high as
Doug, what are
Andrew's.
you having for dinner?
Meat
Borscht,
cubes. Meat
The
cubes.
meat
pierogies,
cubes. The meat cubes.
schmolfat.
What the hell
real
is
Mennonite
borscht?
food. You don't know what borscht is?
No, what
Borscht is
it?
amazing.
That's
Borscht is
a Russian
actually really
soup.
good.
Yeah, there's
It's
Zimmer
starvation
borscht.
soup.
Spaghetti with no spaghetti.
It's
Oh.
yeah, it's starvation food. It's cold soup.
Yeah.
Cold
You know what?
tomatoes,
I want to
pasta
let you know,
sauce.
Doug. I'm having steak, and potatoes, mashed potatoes, by the way,
And beer.
for dinner, and it's going to be cooked in the most delicious way possible. And I just wanted to let you know that all of that's going to happen, Doug, because I have a subservient Christian wife, and that's what you get, Doug. It's what you get.
He has
I
one
do
too.
too.
Best of both worlds. Have a good one, Doug. I'll see,
See
you,
ya,
bro.
guys.
See ya. All right, you guys can continue, or we can.
Yeah,
we're
weren't we
we're
gonna
at 3
talk about
hours.
Evolution and precept or something.
Yeah, we're gonna have to wrap the
Oh.
panel out here pretty quick.
We could, Tom. You can definitely come back and do evolution. Right
Yeah, that was
now,
a ton
I
of
think
fun.
we're at 3 hours. I prefer to keep this at 3 hours, and you're definitely welcome back for evolution. I'll select the panel for that as well. But thanks for coming back on, Tom. Rachel, thank you for jumping on.
Yeah,
Neil,
hey,
of course.
it was good. It was good to see you again, Tom.
You too.
Yeah, and you have yourself a wonderful night as well. I just want to let all the chat know. Make sure you make it rain on Jimbob for putting
Thank
such
you
a
so much.
great panel
gonna read.
together. Absent Neil, who was totally worthless the entire time.
He's never worth
Poor
it.
Neil.
No, he's-
Poor Neil.
You guys are
he's-
so abusive.
And
to
I'm
Neil.
gonna stay and read the super chats as well. I'm sure Andrew has to go through some stuff over at your side, so I'm not gonna end the stream right now. But I want to say I'm gonna get you guys your last words. T-Jump, let everyone know where you are, what else you're doing, and where people can find you.
Pornhub.com/tjump.
Of course. Fair enough. That was a decent troll. Okay, Neil. Well, that's where you're gonna have to find him. So Neil, your turn.
My YouTube channel is called Gnostic Informant, ancient history, mythology stuff. Check it out.
Okay, and Rachel.
You can find me chained to my stove in the kitchen under Andrew's boot.
That's right. Nice.
You can check out my YouTube channel. It's just Rachel Wilson.
Okay, cool. And Andrew, of course.
Well, I'm going to stick around, actually.
Okay, stick around.
for a
Okay,
few.
cool.
Yeah.
All right, cool. All right.
Thank you guys so much. And thank you, of course, Rachel. Get on that steak. If you know
Yummy.
what's good for to the moon, Alice. T-Jump, it was great to see you again. I'm glad you came back on the panel. I hope we can do more of this in the future.
See you guys
All right.
later.